Can I do this?
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to do that. I don't get many opportunities. I will kick off this meeting until the election of the chair. Welcome to this meeting of the South Downs National Park Authority. My name is Sean McGeever and I am the Chief Executive of the South Downs National Park Authority. I need to remind you that this meeting is being webcast by the National Park Authority and will be available for subsequent online viewing. By coming into the meeting room, you are considered to have given your consent to be filmed or recorded and for the possible use of images and sound recordings for webcasting and or training purposes. To minimize disruption, please could I ask you to switch mobile phones to silent. Richard Fryer, do we have any apologies?
We have received apologies from Stephen Whale.
Great, thank you very much. We shall move on to item 2, the election of chair. Nomination closed at 12 noon on the 22nd of June, and there was only one nomination for the position of chair. Therefore, I declare that Vanessa Rowlands is elected as chair until the Authority AGM in 2027.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say some words, especially as there's lots of us here today and lots of new people. But I just want to start by thanking you all so much for your confidence in re-electing me as chair. And I want to thank all members and especially welcome our new members. You're joining an authority that is ambitious, collaborative, and genuinely committed to making a difference. Over the years, we've achieved a great deal together. We've established a thriving trust, taken on the Seven Sisters Country Park, become leaders in nature recovery and green finance, and attracted new investment into the national park. None of that has happened by accident. It has come from members and officers working together with a shared vision and sense of purpose. We work collegiately and we pull in the same direction. And one thing I'm particularly proud of is the culture that we've built here. We do not see governance and ambition as opposites. We challenge and scrutinise, but we encourage our officers to be innovative, creative, and bold within our legal powers and agreed risk appetite. If we're serious about delivering our partnership management plan, standing still is not an option. This year is likely to be one of significant change around us. Devolution and local government reorganisation will reshape many of our partners and much of the public sector landscape. The South Downs National Park Authority is one of the few organisations whose purpose, geography and responsibilities remain unchanged, and that gives us an important role in providing continuity, stability and leadership while working constructively with all the new structures that emerge. As we do that, I hope we will continue to be guided by the values that underpin this authority, which are innovation, collaboration and respect. Innovation in how we tackle challenges facing nature, climate and communities. Collaboration between members, officers and our partners. And respect for one another, recognising that we each bring different experiences, perspectives and expertise to this table, but that we are united by a shared commitment to this national park. So my challenge to all of us for the year ahead is simple. Let's continue to think boldly, work together, support our officers to seize opportunities, and turn the ambitions of the Partnership Management Plan into real outcomes for nature, climate, people, and place. We do it together. Okay, thank you. So, I'm going to move us on to election of our deputy chair. And nominations closed at 12 noon on the 22nd of June, and there was only one nomination for the position of deputy chair. And so I declare that Mark Potter is elected as deputy chair of the authority until 2027. Well done, Mark. Would you like to say something?
Just a very brief comment,
Yeah.
but thank you very much, Vanessa. I wanted to say firstly thanks to my nominee and my seconder for putting me forward for the position again. And especially thanks to all the members for your support across the last year. There's so much wisdom around the table that I benefit from, including sat next to me today, which is so helpful at all the meetings. So I'll continue to benefit from that in the year ahead. But I wanted to pay special thanks, special tribute to all the officers for the phenomenal work that they do every day for the authority, and the amount of hard work and effort that goes into mornings like this morning, but also the preparation for the meetings for today and everything that happens outside of these meetings. So thank you to all the officers. And personally, just recently, I've had some really helpful feedback that I've requested from some of the officers after my first year as Deputy Chair, and it's been incredibly useful, so thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Moving on to, so I'm going to go and start the meeting officially now. And just remind us all that South Downs National Park members have a primary responsibility for ensuring that the authority furthers the national park purposes and duty. Members regard themselves first and foremost as members of the authority and will act in the best interests of the authority and of the park, rather than representatives of their appointing authority or any interest groups. I want to welcome some new members to the authority. We have Soraya Abdul-Hadi, we have Emma Beard, thank you, Yvonne Gravely, and Tracy Pedro. Welcome, everybody. Great to see 4 amazing women in the room, thank you. And I also want to express thanks to former members of the authority. We're going to build on this a little bit later when we get to the Chair's report, but just briefly, Heather Baker, Chris Dowling, Janet Duncton, Joan Greck, and Andy Tree. So thank you so much to them. So the agenda, we've got on your table, you should have been given the proposed appointments to committees along with their chairs and... Oh, it's coming now. and the part 2 papers. Which I need one actually. Okay, live as we do it. Do you need to share these around? I don't know why I've been given a pack. Yes, so you've got the proposed appointments to committees along with the chairs and deputies and appointments to outside bodies form, which is this, and also copies of exempt appendices 5 and 6 that are for consideration along with other papers at agenda item 11. And then the agenda items 20, 21, 22 and 26 on the agenda are minutes of meetings of the authorities' committees and are to note. They will be taken as read unless anyone informs me now that they've got any matters arising or relating to these minutes that they would like to raise now. If you could put up your hand, that would be great. Oh, Gary does, yeah.
Did you miss out item 4, declarations of interest?
No, that's next. I'm still on item 3. I know we've got to finish at 4, but I'm going to do it in the...
I've got election of deputy chair on that one.
Yeah, I've done that. And then I think it's because now Mark and I are both elected, I had to then do the bit about the introduction bit because Sean couldn't do that. So it's a kind of bit of there's been a bit of a freestyle there. But thanks, Gary. So does anyone have anything they want to bring up on the minutes that were P&R minutes and planning meetings? No, okay. I'm going to now move to declarations of interest, and I know lots of people are going to have some declarations of interest. So if I can, right, I'll go Gary, John, Robert, and then Jerry. Gary.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've got a personal and a prejudicial interest in with one of the speakers. I don't know the person, but he's going to speak about something which I will have an interest in. And item 16 of the Petersfield Community Trust, the loan. Yeah. Because I happen to have the house that lives next door to the field.
Oh, right.
I will leave the room.
So you're going to leave the room. Brilliant. Thank you so much. John.
Thank you, Chair. I am the Cabinet Member for Chichester District Council, and we discussed item 25 today, so I will leave the room
Yeah.
when it comes to that item. So I get to go home early.
Okay. Okay. Robert. I think this is
I've got a similar declaration to John. I'm a Cabinet Member for East Hampshire District Council, so item 24 I will leave the room for.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. Then I've got Jerry, and then Tom.
Thank you, Chair. Just a public service interest
And
with regard to item 13, being a member of Winchester, which is part of Hampshire.
Yes, great. Thank you. Tom, and then Craig.
This is just for transparency. I'm on the Pevensey and Cuckmere Level Water Management Board.
Are you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Craig.
Brilliant, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I need to declare an interest for item 17, currently employed by Brighton Hove City Council, who deliver the corporate financial services contract on behalf of the park.
Yeah. So, and you'll withdraw at that point?
Yes, yeah, and I withdraw. And I'll go.
Great, thank you. Does anybody... Oh, Tim, yes, sorry, I couldn't see you there.
Thank you, Chair. I also have an interest. I don't actually own a property anywhere near, but I am on the Petersfield Community Land Trust, so I will be leaving for item 16.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Does anybody else have any declaration? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 20th of March. You have those in your packs. Does anybody have anything they would like to draw our attention to? What I'll do is I'll go through them page by page, and I'll use the page numbering in my pack. So I've got page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, 14, 15, page 16, and page 17. Is everyone okay? Great. Thank you very much. I'll sign those at the end. Thank you. Okay. Item 6, urgent matters. Have we got any urgent matters? No urgent matters. Item 7, public participation. So we have some members of the public come to speak to us, which is fantastic. Thank you. And I'm going to take them in the order that I've got in my sheet here. So we will first listen to Councillor Malcolm Wallace, and then Councillor Danny Lee, and then Martin Evans. So, yes, and so you have 3 minutes to speak, and it's a little traffic light system, so you'll know when you're coming to the end. Thank you. As soon as you start, the timer will go.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Councillor Malcolm Wallace, and I represent Droxford and the surrounding area. I'm here today on behalf of many local residents who have deep and long-standing concerns about the water splash at Mill Lane. For those members who may not be familiar with the site, the water splash is a historic ford where vehicles pass directly through the River Meon. However, this is not a short or occasional crossing. It is a stretch of around 200 metres of the river itself that is regularly driven along by vehicles. That reality is at the heart of local concern. We are not simply talking about crossing the river, but about routine vehicle use within the river channel itself. This has given rise to increasing concerns about damage to the riverbed, impacts on water quality, and disturbance to habitats. The River Meon is a highly valued chalk stream, a rare and fragile environment, and one that this national park has a clear responsibility to help conserve and enhance. As you're no doubt aware, there is a strong feeling locally that the current level and nature of vehicle use at the water splash is simply not compatible with that objective. Hampshire County Council has recently set out its intended approach, including traffic surveys beginning this summer and a programme of ecological monitoring, which may run for approximately 12 months, with decisions to follow once that evidence has been gathered and assessed. Whilst evidence is important, evidence gathering must not become a reason for unnecessary delay. Residents are concerned that a sensitive environment could remain exposed to ongoing harm while monitoring continues. So my request to the authority is therefore straightforward. First, that the National Park Authority makes clear to Hampshire County Council its expectation that this work proceeds with urgency and momentum, and the programme set out does not drift. Second, please encourage the active consideration of interim measures, including an experimental traffic regulation order alongside the evidence-gathering process, rather than only after it has been concluded. And thirdly, please ensure that this authority takes an active oversight role, with regular updates brought back to members so that progress against the stated milestones, particularly the start of the traffic surveys and ecological monitoring, remains visible, transparent and accountable. Given the National Park's statutory purpose to conserve and enhance the natural environment and the reputational impact that this has on the park itself, I believe it's entirely appropriate for this authority to play a proactive and assertive role, ensuring that protections for the River Meon are not unnecessarily delayed. The direction of travel is welcome, but the pace must now match the sensitivity of the environment we are trying to protect.
Thank you so much, Malcolm.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Councillor Danny Lee.
Good afternoon. I'm a Droxford resident and I'm also a local Meon Valley councillor. I wish to reinforce and expand on Councillor Wallace's concerns. The first concern is that neither Hampshire nor the park has adequately explained why interim protection cannot be taken now while additional evidence is gathered. Doing this would not be a case of acting without evidence. Portsmouth Water has collected extensive biodiversity data over the last 2 years through industry standard invertebrate surveys at 16 sites along the River Meon. Comparable sites at Exton and Rooksbury show significantly higher biodiversity than the Droxford water splash. The water splash therefore appears to be an ecological outlier. The survey data was collected independently, analysed by a former Environment Agency ecologist, recorded in the open access Smart Rivers database. According to this evidence, there is strong and credible association between biodiversity decline and the vehicle use at the crossing. There is also visible physical harm. Bank erosion and damage to water vole habitat linked to vehicle use have been identified at the water splash, and this level of impact is not seen elsewhere on the River Meon. Given these facts, a further 12 months of monitoring risks being a waste of public money. If it simply confirms what current data already indicates while harm continues, monitoring may refine the evidence, but it does not protect the river during that period. The question is not simply could Hampshire or the park be challenged if they act, it is also could they be challenged if they fail to act. The strengthened biodiversity duty, protected landscape duty, water environment obligations, the Road Traffic Regulation Act powers, and the River Meon's compensatory SAC habitat role all support the case for immediate action. This would also be consistent with the Hampshire Local Nature Recovery Strategy, i.e. using evidence to identify practical action for nature recovery where it can have the greatest effect now. An experimental traffic regulation order or similar restriction would be a controlled evidence-gathering intervention. It could stop or restrict harmful traffic on a trial basis and turn monitoring into protection. The prevailing concern is that the splash route is being treated as a highway issue. It is also a nature recovery, ecosystem services, and national park purposes issue affecting clean water, habitat quality, riverbank stability, wildlife, and importantly, the tranquility enjoyment of the River Meon by residents and visitors. Residents are not asking the park to be reckless. They're asking for lawful, proportionate, and transparent action now, not in 12 months. I therefore respectfully request that the park takes forward urgent protective measures while a permanent solution is developed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danny. I'm now going to ask Martin Evans to come up and speak. Thank you. Do you want to? No, you don't. You don't.
Thank you for the opportunity to address the committee. I represent Reservoir Lane Community Land Trust Project in Petersfield, which is a scheme that's been running for 4 or 5 years now and has taken a lot of work from volunteers locally. And we're delighted to have got to the point where we have an option for purchase. We have full planning permission granted by yourselves, and all reserved matters are now cleared. The scheme offers 10 bespoke design houses in an exceptional location on the outskirts of Petersfield. The designs are customisable to each purchaser's requirements, and that includes the external finishes as well as layouts. And external finishes will be varied as you've requested, so that the site has some variety in when seen as a whole. The scheme will be built to very high standards, so it will be very low energy, and our expectation is that it will be zero cost through year to run the houses, which we see as a huge benefit for houses like this. The sales criteria are set out by the park, and they will be to local residents, local people working locally as well. And that results in a 10% discount is the agent's view on the values of the houses, so a bit of a discount because they're only available to local people. And a further 5 of the houses will have a further 15% reduction to that value. So that is applied to the same criteria for local people, but does give people a very real opportunity to buy in an area that probably may not be affordable to all. A great part of this scheme is that 100% of the profits are retained by the CLT, and all of that will be invested in future schemes. So this is a pump priming exercise to enable the local community to really get into helping deliver community facilities. We're ready to go. We have the site and we have all of the designs finished. We just need the finances now to top it off. And we're delighted that the South Downs Park is willing to consider the seed corn part of that funding. So it's a junior funding position to the main funder for the site. And you will receive interest back as your normal system. And the risk of the site is very low because we've purchased the site at a very good value. We've demonstrated through sales reports and through detailed discussions with local developers that we have the right figures for the sales and the right figures for the development of the site. So the genuine position is that it's a very low risk development for funders. And I'm actually leaving shortly to go and see one of the main funders that we're talking to. So on that basis, I'd like to recommend, and I hope we get your enthusiastic support, even if you're a neighbour. I know he's left, but we hope everybody will support this scheme. Yeah. It's a really exceptional opportunity.
Thanks, Martin. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Did we want to talk about Splash Route now? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm just going to pass over to Sean. You want to say something?
Yes, thank you, speakers. And just to respond to Councillor Wallace and Councillor Lee on the splash route. So we're working very closely with Hampshire County Council on the approach. We've both taken independent legal advice on the best way forward. I want to reassure you that our commitment remains on the ecological health of the river and how we get to a point where we can maximise that. But we are convinced that the current approach is the right one if we want to follow the process properly and ensure that we manage the risks associated with that process properly. The monitoring that we're doing, or that Hampshire County Council are doing, I think, includes the monitoring of traffic volumes. There is a lot of evidence on the ecological impact, but there are bits of evidence on the use of that we still need in order to look at the case in the whole, and that's really what this time is needed for. So I understand the frustration and I understand the commitment, and thank you for speaking on behalf of the river that doesn't have a voice. But we do feel that we need to follow this process through. We're meeting regularly with Hampshire County Council. There's a website they've put up with updates. We have an update which we're putting on. We just put on our website, and we'll keep that regularly up to date with information that we get. But at this point, I think I'm convinced, certainly, and my team are convinced that the process that we're following is the right one. But rest assured, we share your enthusiasm for the health of the river.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks, Sean. I'm going to move on to item 8 now, and the need for Part 2 exclusion of press and public. So, members, we've got some exempt information, which is all in our pink pack, and there's quite a lot of it. Appendices 5 and 6 of agenda item 11. appendices 1 and 2 of agenda item 16, and agenda items 23, 24, 25, and 26. So I think if we can deal with the formal resolution about whether to move into private session or not now, that would be great. What I'm going to do is just ask Richard Sanderford to explain the reasoning behind this.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. So, as we mentioned, you'll notice we've got quite a number of items on today's agenda which are proposed to be exempt. The detailed reasons for the exemptions are set out there on your agenda cover page at item 8. Excuse me. It's proposed that these should be considered exempt in line with the provisions that are set out in Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Just to briefly summarise what these are, because it is for you to make a decision on this. Agenda items 11 and 26. This is information that's covered by paragraph 1 of the schedule, which is information related to the privacy of an individual. And in these cases, it's the names of the proposed co-opted members of P&R Committee, and it's the Chief Executive's annual appraisal process. Agenda item 16 is covered by paragraph 3 of the schedule, and it's financial information and business affairs of, in this case, Petersfield Community Land Trust, and it's information which is considered to be commercially sensitive to the matter that's under consideration. And then the other items, 23, 24 and 25, again, this is paragraph 3, so it's the financial and business affairs, but of the authority of us this time, is particularly in relation to the delivery of the planning service. So whilst we do acknowledge there is a public interest in the transparency of the authority's proceedings, in these cases it's proposed that the public interest in actually disclosing the information is outweighed by the public interest in the information remaining exempt from publication. So that's what's proposed, and it's for you to take the decision on that.
Yes. Okay. So, members, we've got the recommendation in front of us, and I need a proposer and a seconder for this. So, John and Mark, I'll take that proposer and second. So, members, could I see a raise of hands in support of this recommendation, please? Is that everybody? Yes. Thank you very much. Okay, so we know we can go into private session for those when we get there. Brilliant. Okay, so on to the main agenda items. Item number 9 is Authority Chair Update. So this Chair Update is basically a place for all of us as members to record our activity that we do when we're doing stuff on behalf of the National Park. And I really appreciate you all giving me that information so I can put it in there. But rather helpfully, John Cross just reminded me that myself, John Cross and John Hyland took part in judging for the forthcoming Sussex Heritage Trust Awards, which I left out of the report, and I'm really, really sorry about that because it's an amazing charity, and we support an award every year this year, and it's the award ceremony is taking place tomorrow, actually. So thanks to everybody for doing that judging, and also just to correct an error that I put in on 5.6. It should have been Arran Town Council instead of Arran District Council. Thank you, Steve. Is that right? Arundel. It's Arundel Town Council. So sorry. Thank you very much. And also just to, at this point, I mean, unless anyone has anything they would like to bring up, but I just wanted to highlight again, I mentioned earlier that we've had a number of members leave the authority, leave the board, and 2 of them particularly I've asked to come back today so that we could all say thank you and our proper goodbyes to them, because Heather Baker and Janet Duncton have both been on the board for 10 years and have both been on the planning committee. Heather, for the past 5 years, I think, was chairing the planning committee. It's a huge workload. They've done so much for this authority, and I would just like to ask them both to come to the microphone so that we can say thank you to you, and if you wanted to say a few words. And I'm going to ask my amazing deputy to bring out some gifts as thanks. Yeah. So Heather actually has that. This is the 3rd thank you and goodbye, is it? the 3rd time we've thanked you and said goodbye. It's the festival of
This is my third and final appearance.
Yes,
I promise you.
yes. Thank you so much. But Janet, because of local elections, you suddenly, are not a member, but
No,
I
I
really
am a
wanted you
member.
to come
Well,
back
not
so
here.
that we could all say thank you to you. And I don't know if you want to say anything to us.
Shall I go?
You go.
I don't want to step on the chairman of planning's toes as well. Well, I just wanted to say, Chairman, it's been a privilege. I always have a saying that you get out of something what you put into it, and I hope you feel that we, Heather will speak for herself, of course, but what we put into it. It's been a thoroughly good time. I hope that the knowledge we've had, mainly with planning, has helped us to make some good decisions. I expect we didn't make them all good, but hey-ho. On the whole, I think we made some pretty good decisions. The officers have always been wonderful and helped us. I've always known where to turn to if I wasn't sure about something. And although, sad goodbyes and all that, Chairman, I live on a farm within the park, so I should be watching you very closely what's going on around me. Heather also lives within the park. But, Chairman, all I want to say is thank you to everybody, especially the officers that I've known for many a year. Tim, especially, I've known you a very long time. I've enjoyed my time here. I've enjoyed the says that I've been able to have, and I've enjoyed the people I've worked with, and I've enjoyed the dinner ladies. My goodness me. Those buns that we have first thing in the morning, I used to have them instead of breakfast. So thank you all very much, and I hope you all go onwards and upwards with all the new people that you've got. Thank you, Chairman.
Oh, thanks, Janet. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness, which one is?
But I've got a very special gift here as well from which is I think this is the planning bus.
It's the planning site visit bus.
Which goes to people with 10 years service.
Oh, I see.
There's only 3 people in the world that have got one of those.
Even branded, look.
My goodness me, I'll put that on the windowsill with my Morris Minor model that I have for my Miss Molly, who's a Morris Minor. So thank you very much.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Pleasure.
Wonderful.
Well, she said it all, really, hasn't she? She left me almost speechless, but not quite. Not quite. Well, it's been great. I mean, it really has been a terrific experience, a wonderful 10 years. We've come an awfully long way in 10 years, as a lot of you will know. And it feels like a different place from the place that I joined 10 years ago, which is good because change is always positive. We've had an enormous change in members. We've had a huge change in officers. But Tim and I are still here until today. It's been a long road, Tim, but it's been a good road. And the officers have been absolutely amazing to work with. They've been very collaborative, as have the members. Somebody asked me the other day, what has been your greatest achievement? And of course, that's not quite the question, because the answer is it's not my achievement, it's the achievement that we've all had together. And it's only because we've all worked together that we've had these achievements. And I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm going to be watching you very carefully from now on. But I'm leaving you all in John's very safe hands.
Yeah.
And I notice in the report that you're taking away the name chairman, and that's clearly because you're getting rid of me. So thank you all very much. I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather. Oh, yeah. Thank you both so much for all your service. Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I just briefly before I move on, does anyone have anything else they would like to add to that agenda item 9? Nope. Brilliant. Okay, great. We shall move on. You're allowed to go now. Thank you. Okay, item 10, the Chief Exec's progress report. So I'm going to hand over to Sean for this.
I know we've got a lot to go through, so I won't say a lot, and I'll just leave it for any questions. Other than a huge thanks to the whole team, to everyone, in fact. The year, writing this and putting this together, realizing that actually last year we achieved a huge amount. It was incredibly busy. I think some of us are feeling quite stretched and tired, and still some way to go on that. But we are growing and we're doing exciting things. And we are now into our third official heat wave, so it's very important that we crack on. As I said in my intro, we've got a lot to do to adapt and to mitigate. There's 2 points that I just need to clarify from the report. Paragraph 4.1, as I have it here, I think I've written over 300 comments in here, but I think it was supposed to be 1,300. So first of all, it's a typo. And then secondly, it's wrong because that was a week before the end. It was 2,200 comments. So just to update that and to draw your attention to 4.2, there's been a lot of feedback and a lot of engagement, which is great. So just to note the intention to bring the plan back to Planning Committee in November and full authority in December, so that all are engaged on how we've responded to this consultation and to review what that interest looks like. Thank you. I'll stop there and open for any questions.
Yeah. Does anyone have? So I've got John Cross and then Robson.
Thank you, Chair. Just noting the 2.1, it sort of rang a bell. In the recent elections, I knocked on one person's door and they raised the issue that the South Downs National Park Authority has no emergency planning for a catastrophic event in the park, so it's a massive fire or something. And I said, I'm not sure about that, but I'll raise it. So I thought, I'll raise it now. And I just wondered whether we do have any authority to plan, engage, whatever, with other services in having some sort of register of assets that are, in the event of with the heat wave, fires are going to become ever more present. Do we have any sort of register that we, these are the most important sites, please save these before we save anything else?
I'm going to ask Richard to confirm this, but as far as I know, we don't, and we don't have any formal role in emergency planning. Having said that, we had the 14 other national parks visit us last week, and one of the agenda items was wildfire. And the Cairngorms have been at the forefront of all of this. The Peak District have also engaged in wildfire planning. It's not such a huge issue for us at this point because we don't have as much heathland, and it tends to be heathland and peat bogs that are the real big challenges. The Cairngorms have introduced a bylaw to ban open fire outside of the curtilage of individual properties. So no barbecues, no campfires. And I was looking on their social media this morning, and there's some lovely smiling photos of their rangers with police officers going out together to enforce this. So we're all watching quite carefully because I think there is a role potentially for us, but I don't think we have a statutory role in any sense. Is that right, Richard?
Thanks, John. Yeah, thanks, John. No, so we're not, we don't have a formal role in emergency planning or emergency response. We would, of course, cooperate with the authorities who lead on that, which for this area would be the county and the district council, so West Sussex and Chichester for this area, or the relevant other authorities. But we don't come under a Category 1 responder or a Category 2 for emergency planning purposes. We don't have a register of sort of what to say first, as you mentioned, either. But we can perhaps take that offline and consider if that's something we should have, particularly as we now own land and other sites, and look at that for the future and what our policy should be.
Where we do have a role, I think, is in prevention and working with nature-based solutions, and also through planning, through the policies that we've put in place, whether it's around flood mitigation, around issues to do with climate change, heating, renewable energy, all of these things, these elements that we look at. We certainly are active in thinking about it, but we don't have any fire engines at this point.
Great, thank you. I've got Robson and then Gary.
Thank you. I just wanted to note that the vast majority of targets we're not hitting are in the climate and nature bit, which obviously there are justifications and reasons in the report. But I think it perhaps opens up a discussion. Obviously, I really, I work in conservation for a living, so I obviously appreciate the effort. But I wonder if that suggests that maybe how we're allocating our funding and priorities and time maybe needs reviewing, just because, you know, obviously we're here with the context and we can see there's reasons, you know, sites falling through and capital works, but out of context for someone, the public seeing this, it's perhaps not, well, it just isn't a very good look if those targets, I know we touch on it in Agenda 14, Item 14 kind of touches on building capacity and stuff, but just as a kind of more general point, I just wanted to raise.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, and I looked at that as well, and this is why I was very keen that we have this dashboard in the CEO report, and it's in the public domain. It has already galvanized us to do things differently. The nature target, I think, is more about pipeline fluctuation, and I'm not worried about hitting that. I think we've got a really strong pipeline. It's just that this year didn't land everything in the reporting year. On our own net zero targets for the authority, we haven't done enough. We now have a group. You'll see in the earmark reserve, I'm asking to put some money aside specifically to address that so that we can get that out of the way, because I think that is not a good look. We should be leading the way. And I think as the park as a whole, as we start to look at some of the woodland and some of the other mitigation projects that we know are happening, we hope we'll start to see that come back on track and hopefully actually exceed our targets. But I'm not, you know, I'm not shy to have that out there, but I also feel the discomfort because I want to fix it. So it sort of pushes us towards that. But thanks for bringing that up.
Great. Gary and then Robert.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. What John's just mentioned, I sat on the emergency forum for many a year when I was the deputy leader of my authority.
Oh, could you bring the microphone a bit closer? Sorry. I find it hard to...
I've sat on the emergency forum for many a year representing my authority. I think it would be very useful if the South Downs was actually part of that, because it does involve the districts and boroughs across West Sussex, because that's where I live. And it would actually be very useful if the National Park was actually represented on that body as well, because they haven't to date.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. That's really helpful. I've got Robert.
Thanks, Vanessa. I've got a question, Sean, about 4.22, about Courthouse Meadows, which is the stretch of the River Mearn that's been bought by Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust, which I think we all absolutely recommend, and they've got a visit coming up shortly, I think, for members of this authority to go and see that. My question, Sean, is, did we give any consideration to buying that ourselves, given the fact it was for sale, money was being raised by a third party? We've talked in the past about trying to equalise ownership of assets in the east and the west. We had an asset come up for sale, bang in the area we're most interested in, the west, and we appeared not to have wanted to own it. We appeared wanted to let a partner own it. So I'm just interested in that decision or non-decision in light of the fact we've talked in the past about trying to find assets in the west of the park for the authority to own. One came up for sale, and we didn't appear to be involved in those discussions in a way that we might end up owning it. So I'm just interested in that process.
You might recall that we agreed a land acquisition framework in 2024, I think, at the end of, might be early 2025. But that framework agreed some core principles, and one of those that we positioned ourselves as a buyer of last resort. So if there were active and able bodies able to take on land, that we would support them to do so, and that actually we would only consider purchasing ourselves if there was no one else around to take on that task. And so in answer to your question, when looking at this site, we had Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust ready and willing to do so, and on review they had a better infrastructure to be able to support that piece of land in terms of its conservation enhancement going forward, and so the decision was taken to support them rather than bring something back to ourselves.
I think also, yes, we are looking to see if we can have more of a presence in the West. If we do, when we do find somewhere, I want it to have a sort of strong visitor engagement element. I would like it to be at least self-financing, and ideally in partnership. And this site was literally a greenfield site with none of the infrastructure that would allow that. So I don't think it would have been suitable for that. But it was great to be able to support the Wildlife Trust to be able to buy it and renature it as they're doing. But yes, it's definitely on our radar. And there's a couple of things in the pipeline that we're looking at, which we're quite excited about. But they're a bit of a slow burner because they're in partnership.
No, that's a really useful question. Thanks, Robert. Does anyone else? Paul Bevan.
Thank you. I'd like to register in this public session the concern that I've already expressed about the lack of progress on the Egrets Way between Lewes and Newhaven. Completing that route is fundamental to the strategic cycle and active travel network of that area. I appreciate that there have been complications, but I hope that resources can be put into achieving some early wins there soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything they would like to bring up? No? Okay, so we've got the recommendation in front of us. Can I see a show of hands in support of that, please? I think that's everybody. Great. Thank you very much. Item number 11, appointment of committees and outside bodies. You've got this sheets in front of you. And I'm just going to pass over to Richard Sanderford to talk us through this.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, members. So this report is our annual report through which that you as the authority put in place a variety of arrangements for essentially effective decision making across the authority and our governance arrangements. So this includes, through this report, the appointment of our committees for the coming year, including continuing the Policy and Resources Committee being the authority's audit committee. It covers the appointment of members to those committees and the chairs and deputy chairs of those committees as well. The proposed committees remain the same as last year, and the terms of reference are set out at Appendix 1. The proposed appointments to the committees for the coming year are in Appendix 3, which is on the table before you, along with the chairs and deputy chairs, which is Appendix 4, which is also on the table before you. As part of this report, we're also proposing the appointment of 2 co-opted members to P&R committee. One of these is an independent member of the committee, as it's recommended that we should have by SIPFA on the committee. We already have one existing, and this will be the second one as per their recommendations. The names and biographies of the individuals proposed are in the exempt appendices, so the pink papers before you, appendices 5 and 6. If you want to discuss anything in relation to the individuals, then as we've resolved, we would move into private session to discuss anything about the individuals themselves. And then finally, through the report, we also appoint to outside bodies, which includes the appointment of trustees to the South Downs National Park Trust, and those appointments are set out at Appendix 7, which is on the table before you. So thank you, Chair, and happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you, members, for your expressions of interest and getting involved in outside bodies. Really appreciate the energy. Does anyone have anything they just would like to bring up or ask about this, or anything in the Part 2 papers? No? Everyone happy? Okay. Well, I'm going to move us to the recommendations, of which there are a lot, and I'm not going to read them all out because we've got them in paper and on our screen in front of us. But I would like to see a show of hands into support of these recommendations, please. Great. That's everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so moving on to agenda item 12. An annual update on our South Downs communications and engagement work. And I was going to invite Ruth to come and speak, but she probably thought that we were going to be running a lot slower than we are. So I tell you what we do. In the meantime, let's jump ahead to item number 13, which is the adoption of the Hampshire Minerals and Waste Update. And I'm going to invite Lewis and Claire Tester, who are here, to no, don't say Ruth, it's fine, to have questions. So I'm going to ask Lewis to introduce this report. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. So before we move into the recommendation for this agenda item, which is to adopt the updated Hampshire Minerals and Waste Plan, I'm first going to take you through a presentation of 7 parts as set out in the screen above. I appreciate it's a lot of parts, but there are new members, and so I want to make sure that everyone is aware. So, to begin, part one is about minerals and waste plan making in the South Downs National Park in general. The National Park Authority is the local minerals and waste planning authority for the whole of the national park. So we have a hat trick of plan making roles. In terms of local planning authority, we prepare a local plan, which you are aware of, but for the avoidance of doubt, this is to do with non-minerals and non-waste developments and is not part of today's decision. In our role as the Minerals and Waste Planning Authority, which is relevant to today's decision, we are required to prepare minerals and waste plans to guide minerals and waste development in the national park. However, rather than prepare one minerals and waste plan for the whole national park, we work in partnership with the county and unitary authorities to prepare joint minerals and waste plans for each county that the national park stretches across. This means that the national park is split between 3 minerals and waste plan areas, and these are shown in the image on the screen above. In relation to today's decision, we are looking at the Hampshire Minerals and Waste Plan area, so the one on the left of the screen above, which includes the East Hampshire and Winchester areas of the national park, so broadly the area between Petersfield and Winchester. Okay, part 2. So the Hampshire Minerals and Waste Plan area, the authorities responsible in this area for planning for minerals and waste are, in alphabetical order, Hampshire County Council, New Forest National Park Authority, Portsmouth City Council, Southampton City Council, and ourselves as the South Downs National Park Authority. But moving forward, I will just say the authorities, because we will be here forever if I have to list out all 5 again and again, and you will not thank me for that, given the heat. Now, on to part 3, which is the context of the Hampshire Minerals and Waste Plan. The authorities, the 5 authorities, prepared and adopted the extant Hampshire Minerals and Waste Plan back in October 2013 to cover a plan period up to 2030. Regulations and national policy require planning authorities to review development plan documents every 5 years from the date of their adoption to ensure they remain up to date and effective. The extant plan, being adopted in 2013, was subject to reviews in 2018 and 2020. The latter review concluded that parts of the extant plan needed to be updated to address changes in national policy and also identified issues with mineral production and waste management in the Hampshire Minerals and Waste Plan area. The updated plan, which is Appendix 1 and today's decision, seeks to address the above, along with the implications of extending the plan period by 10 years up to 2040. Okay, part 4, the milestones achieved so far. So that gives you the context of what's happened over the last few years, how we've got to today. The updated plan has been subject to regulatory public consultations and an independent examination in public, as set out in the screen above. The examination included hearing sessions in February and September 2025, so last year, on principal matters identified by the planning inspector, followed by public consultation on proposed main modifications between the 4th of December last year and the 12th of February this year. The representations received during this most recent public consultation were passed to the planning inspector for consideration, and the authorities received the planning inspector's final report and their schedule of main modifications back in April this year. These were then published on the 8th of May after the pre-election period had ended, and officers from all 5 of the authorities are now seeking approval from their respective councils and national park authorities to adopt the updated plan this month. This is all summarised in the table above, as well as in the officer report, which is part of your agenda item packs. Okay, part 5. So we're going to talk about what's in the updated plan, and this does include 5 slides, so strap in. This one is a bit longer. To begin, the updated plan sets out a clear decision-making framework for mineral extraction and waste management in Hampshire up to 2040. Now, the presentation and the officer report do not provide a summary of every single policy and main modification, as these are set out in the appendices. So to give you a flavour of what's in the plan, and considering topics and matters that you've raised questions about in the past, we have provided a summary in this presentation and in the report to give you an idea of what is in the plan. In short, the updated plan builds upon and strengthens the policies of the extant plan and accords with national legislation and policy. It includes, for example, and is not limited to, biodiversity net gain, local nature recovery strategies, updated protections for greenbelt and protected landscapes, and new requirements for climate change assessments and health impact assessments. So to go into a bit more detail, and likely to be of particular relevance to this authority, is Policy 4, because it is about nationally protected landscapes, so us. This policy, as amended by Main Modification 7, is considered to further the purposes of the protected landscapes. The main modification helps to strengthen this policy by providing clarification around our purposes and duties, reordering to reflect the National Planning Policy Framework, improve references to the Partnership Management Plan, and provide clarification about small and localised waste management. And finally, to provide clarification that in instances where exceptional circumstances and public interest are sufficiently demonstrated, development must be carried out in accordance with any proposed moderation measures identified in major development assessments. Moving on to Policy 20, this is about local Land 1 aggregates. The updated plan allocates 4 sites for Land 1 aggregate mineral extraction. And the planning inspector has explained in their report, which is Appendix 5 in your pack, that they are satisfied that the approach to site selection is proportionate and robust. Now, the existing and allocated sites, mineral sites, may not be sufficient to provide supply up to 2040. So to address potential shortfall later in the plan period, a flexible approach to aggregate supply has been set out, as amended by Main Modification 23, through soft sand preferred areas and further opportunities for aggregate extraction in the plan area. The image on the screen above gives you an idea of where the soft sand preferred areas are in the plan area, but these are shown more accurately on the policies map, which is Appendix 2 in your agenda item packs. You will see that protected landscapes have been excluded from the soft sand preferred areas. Okay, so now we'll talk about sites. The big key message, that there are no sites allocated in the South Downs National Park. There are 4 new sites allocated in the plan for mineral extraction and 1 site for an aggregate rail depot, but these are outside the national park and outside our setting. Instead, this updated plan simply safeguards active sites and infrastructure in the national park. These are listed above and in your officer report. And as explained in the plan, they will be updated annually through the annual monitoring report. Okay, final slide on content, we're almost there. In terms of waste management, the updated plan aims for net self-sufficiency, applies the waste hierarchy, does not allocate any new landfill sites, and includes information on current and future waste management capacity gaps. In terms of these gaps, waste arisings are forecast to rise slightly up to 2040, but this is addressed in the updated plan by safeguarding existing facilities, supporting recycling and limited recovery capacity, and allowing new proposals to come forward against set criteria, similar to the extant plan. Right, part 6, adoption, the penultimate part. The adoption of the updated plan is being considered by all 5 authorities on the dates set out on the screen above. By way of update as of this morning, both Hampshire and Portsmouth have confirmed that the updated plan has gone through their cabinets, ready to be considered by their full council meetings in the coming days. In terms of who is the first to adopt, it is us, and that's just because of the way the timetable has worked out. If all authorities adopt the updated plan, then it will be adopted across Hampshire by the 23rd of July, 2026. It will supersede the extant plan in its entirety, and it will be part of the development plan for the Hampshire area of the South Downs National Park. Now, before we get to the recommendation, it is important that we clarify to you that this report and the adoption of the updated Hampshire Minerals and Waste Plan has not been considered by the South Downs Planning Committee ahead of being considered by yourselves today. This is because of a combination of 3 reasons. Reason 1, the inspector's report and scheduled May modifications were published on the 8th of May 2026. This was to avoid the pre-election period. But it did mean that they were published after the papers of the most recent planning committee were published. And so it couldn't be considered on the 14th of May by the planning committee. There are no other scheduled meetings of the South Downs Planning Committee between the 14th of May and today. And then finally, reason 3, the development scheme for this updated plan anticipated adoption in winter 25-26. We are now in summer 26, so we are beyond that time. And it would be beneficial and practical for reasons of implementation that all authorities, so ourselves and the other partners, adopt this plan at broadly the same time. And this has been coordinated between the officers of the authority to take place this month. In addition to those 3 reasons, it's important to note that the South Downs Planning Committee did approve the proposed main modifications and their public consultation back in November 2025. And the planning inspector explains in their report that none of their post-consultation amendments to the scheduled main modifications significantly alter the content of the main modifications as published for consultation. And then finally, sorry, the slides changed. And then finally, the recommendations are on the screen above you, over 2 slides, I'm hoping. There we go, yep, over 2 slides. I'm not going to read them all out, they are in your report. The key one is the last one, which is to adopt and publish the updated Hampshire Minerals and Waste Plan. Thank you very much, and we're happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Lewis. Thank you for explaining it really clearly, because they are quite technical documents and this hasn't gone through planning committee. So I really, really appreciate that. And your report picking out the main bits for us is really good. So thank you. Members, I'm just thinking specifically planning committee members, if you've got any questions. Daniel, you've got a question.
Thank you. Just wanted to ask this, maybe showing my lack of knowledge, but could you just explain briefly what safeguarded means in the context of a safeguarded site? For example, an oil and gas safeguarded site. It'd be good to know.
Yep, sure. So by safeguarding, we mean that these are sites we want to retain and we want to keep them active. And if an application was to come forward for an alternative use, the applicant would need to demonstrate why that site was no longer adequate for its current use. Basically, we don't want mineral sites and waste sites and infrastructure to just be removed or lost. We want to retain them wherever possible. And it means that applicants need to work harder to provide evidence to show that a site can be removed or lost. It's all set out in the policies in the plan about what they need to go through criteria-wise. Thank you.
Stephen, and then Alan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the question follows on from that, actually, and it's again around oil and gas. And how do we marry the safeguarding of the oil and gas sites with our protected landscape target of net reduction of carbon emissions between now and 2050?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yep. So first thing I'll say is that it's very common for minerals and waste plans to safeguard existing active sites. It's a little bit odd if you don't safeguard them. In terms of oil and gas sites, there's 3 in the Hampshire area. They all have planning permission to an extent. And I believe the 2 Horndean ones will expire in the early 2030s, and the one at Avington, we've had a recent application for partial restoration, so they are looking at restoring the site. As I said, we do need to safeguard them. They are all due to expire in the near future, and we do have a thematic policy for any new oil and gas development or proposed developments that might come forward, which does link to policy for the protected landscapes, which basically shows you need to show a proven need. And under policy 2 of this plan, you'd also need to provide a climate change assessment to demonstrate how you would be able to move with the transition to net zero. So we can't say no to oil and gas sites. So our way is to safeguard what we've already got, see them out to the end, and then make sure that the criteria-based policy we have for oil and gas developments is connected to all the other policies in the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Lewis, these are historic sites, aren't they? They're not, yeah.
Yes, to confirm, the 3 that are in the Hampshire plan area were all in existence in some shape or form before we became a national park.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to bring in Alan next. Thank you. Yes.
Yep. Thanks. Yeah, I'm not going to get into that last point, because essentially what Lewis has just said is the correct position. All I was going to do was to acknowledge the point that the way in which this particular minerals plan has come before us as the full authority is unorthodox for the calendar reasons that Lewis explained. Normally it would have gone through in detail within the planning committee. But what I want to say is we can all take comfort from the fact, which Lewis did point to, that the inspector, I think it was the inspector, indicated that what is in effect the current wording is not materially different from a stage in the process which the planning committee did consider in detail. It's just that because of the timetabling issues, we didn't get another go at it effectively within the weeks leading, running up to this hearing. So it has actually, in terms of the substance, been looked at in detail by the planning committee, and I'm certainly supporting the recommendation.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that, Alan, for explaining that. Thank you. And John, do you want to come in?
Just reinforcing what Alan says, we have seen it in the past, albeit not in its final form. Everybody was fairly content with what they saw, so therefore I would like to recommend it to the authority that we adopt this as a plan.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you, John. Does anyone else have any? John Cross.
Yeah, I just wanted, for the record, 5 other implications. In that first box, will further decisions be required by another authority? Presumably, the Hampshire Strategic Authority will come into being. Does this need to then come to them for approval, or does this automatically carry over?
Lewis, do you want to come in?
I assume by strategic authority you're referring to the mayoral authorities. So at present it will be, well, providing that you wish to adopt, it will be adopted by all 5 authorities, and it will be the adopted plan moving forward. If everyone votes to adopt it, it will still then be the plan moving forward, even with local government reorganisation and all the mayoral authorities coming into play, until such time that a new plan is prepared and adopted in its place. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have anything they would like to ask? Okay, should we move to the recommendations, which were a lot, but as Lewis pointed out, the really main one is that number 5 of adoption. And can I see a show of hands in support? Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Great. What time is it? 2 o'clock. Okay, right. I'm going to rewind back to item 12 and introduce Ruth James, our Head of Communications, to come and talk to us about the communications and engagement work. And it's great that Ruth comes. We do this once a year. We sort of stopped it last year, but it's a really lovely moment to actually appreciate all the hard work that the comms team have been doing, because it's just multi-layered, and a lot of it you don't see, and a lot of it we do see, and it's amazing. And so over to you, Ruth. Thank you.
Thank you. I know you've got a very busy agenda, so I've just picked out some of the highlights in the reports. I mean, the main thing to say is it has been a phenomenally busy year. All of the work that's coming before the authority, there's very little of that that doesn't come through the comms and engagement team. So sometimes it's not always the obvious work. You know, we started the year off with quite a bang, delivering the partnership management plan. February was all about Dark Skies Festival and celebrating 10 years as an international dark sky reserve. In March, we had an unexpected NNR declaration and a visit from the King, Secretary of State, and both ministers, all very hush-hush, and I learnt a lot about security for the royal for the package, as he is referred to. And then following on from that, we had the small matter of a giant local plan and being able to communicate that. Our corporate plan, we've just had a fantastic CEO chairs forum for all the chairs and chief execs of all the national parks. And we've been doing a lot around behaviour management and planning communication. So it's been a very varied year, and it's always difficult to pick out some highlights, but I've tried to do that. So this just gives you a little bit of a snapshot. I mean, you need the stories behind for the figures to make sense, but some of the things I would pick out from this one is the fact that our media coverage continues to be really, really high. And really good coverage, despite a really, really difficult external media environment. I can't tell you how difficult it is out there with things happening and politicians being quite erratic and politics taking over lots. So we've been very successful. The other thing I was going to point out was Seven Sisters communications. So the engagement rate. So 5% engagement is a really, really good rate. It's what you're going for. Last year, when I reported back to you, in October actually, when I reported back to you, Seven Sisters would have been at about 5%. That's now increased to 7%.
Brilliant.
So that may sound like a small margin, but it's really, really important. So we can see those gains, but across all of our channels, we continue not only to grow numbers, but also engagement. So that's just a quick snapshot. In terms of, I thought it'd be good to point out some reactive and new. I'm often asked if I can have a 12-month forward plan for comms. No. I don't think it's impossible almost to plan 3 months in advance at the moment. So I wanted to pick out some stuff because there are things that we've responded to reactively and new things, and all of these are opportunities. So we have to have that flexibility always to take up those opportunities. So on the top left, you can see Vanessa doing a very nice curtsy. Sean is trying to look I had to try and find a picture with the king that doesn't involve Andy Gattaker because he's in all the pictures. And that was the only one I could find of the two of you. Sean is trying to look unimpressed, but is very impressed. He was messaging me on the day. He was clearly very impressed. But that was fantastic. We had the Secretary of State. We had 2 ministers there. We had the chair and the chief executive of Natural England. And that wasn't even our event. That was an event we were hosting for Natural England. It did a huge amount to raise our profile within Natural England, within DEFRA, within all those bodies, but also show that we're an organisation that is good to work with. We deliver, and that is why it's so important. So that was an absolutely fantastic day, and the Royal team were really pleased as well, which was great. On the bottom left, we have an example of some of the new types of social media we've been trying to do to manage behaviour at Seven Sisters, keep people out of the water, away from the cliffs, getting them to take their litter home. Very successful. That was really interesting about how we had over 2,000 people saved that to then go back and refer to that. So that's a really good thing. And then top right, we have a clip from our digital partnership management plan, and this year we really took on board what was said quite early on with members in those workshops, where we talked about we wanted to be different, we wanted to be engaging, we want to try new things. So we sought out and implemented a whole new digital system called VEV, which is an interactive scrolly telling system that allowed us to build the PMP, and we're currently working on the corporate plan on that, and it'll be very useful for lots of other things as well. And then bottom right, I think this is such a great picture. This is from the CEO Chair's briefing. And this was a nice touch that the Nature-Based Solutions team put in. I can't think of anybody else who would deliver a cream tea while telling people how amazing Nature-Based Solutions was, but hugely impactful, and it just shows the quality of the visits that we're delivering, and there have been a lot of visits. But yeah, it brings a lot of work. And then on to the less positive. This is an example of some of the comments that we've had. You know, it's not very nice to be called some of those names. You don't often see a lot of this because we see it first and we take it off. So that is evening working, weekend working. Do you want to see the offensive posts that caused this? Yeah. So I think it's really important to always look at things that aren't going very well. Sometimes there are things that we can improve on. Sometimes we just need to change our systems, put extra protections in place, because the external environment is not a nice place to communicate in at the moment. And what we're always trying to do with our audiences is we are here for everybody. So we post for Sussex Day, we post for everything. This isn't about virtual signalling. We don't do that. We try and work with all groups, and that means current existing audiences and new audiences as well. That's the whole point of a national park for all. But nobody seems to get offended when we post for more traditional audiences. So just as an example. And then in terms of next steps, so what are the big things happening? I mean, there's a huge program of work. I could list off lots of different exciting projects, but some of the key ones are we're going to be working on our brand. So this is all about a new identity for the National Park Authority. But within that, understanding our whole brand hierarchy, it's really important. This is all about who we are and who we want to be going forward, how we want partners to see us. And it's really important that we take a look at that. We're all about future-facing, solutions-focused, and at the moment our brand hierarchy doesn't represent that. So that's a really key piece of work, and Vanessa and Sean and James are going to be right involved with that from the start. And we're also going to be doing a new communications and engagement strategy. And that's going to be the top-level response. It's going to be a plan that's going to align with the timeline for the partnership management plan and the corporate plan, because that's what we're here to deliver. So the comms engagement strategy is going to be all about that. There's going to be a workshop with you guys looking at audiences, existing and new audiences, and how we might want to do that messaging. And then, of course, the bottom bit, that is me and the team. We're going to be communicating about everything and anything that comes up. Some planned, some not planned, but it's just being ready and reactive. So what can members do? We need you to be champions. We need you to be talking positively about what we do and getting involved. You can open doors. You have contacts that we don't. So, for example, when we're talking about dark skies. Some of you work for the lighting authorities. You can have a huge impact for us in doing that. Stay informed. Follow us on our social media channels. Read Update every Friday. You know, sign up for our monthly newsletter, for our planning newsletter. You'll get so much information there that will really help you when you're going out to talk to your own communities. Make those connections and inspire action. That's what we're all about driving change. This isn't about we're not at a static moment in time. We're driving towards achievement of that 2060 vision, so we really need you on board to do that. And I didn't want to, you know, we've had quite a negative slide, so I wanted to highlight this recent story. Excuse the poem, but I think it's very apt. This is a glowworm. And for those of you who haven't seen the poem, I wish I were a glowworm, for a glowworm's never glum, because how can you be grumpy when the sun shines out your bum? And this very small beetle, it's not a worm, it's a beetle. We did a story about that, and it actually took off. So we had 36 pieces of coverage, reached over 276 million people. We've had some amazing, so it's been on everything from The World Tonight to CBBC to the iPaper to the BBC to ITV, absolutely everything. And it's a fantastic reminder that if you get that right nugget of inspiration, even in a negative external environment, you really can carry it. Mm-hmm. This has allowed us not just to talk about our, you know, it's a small little insect, but it's caught imagination. It's allowed us to talk about nature recovery, but it's also allowed us to talk about our dark skies and the importance of it. So, you know, never underestimate the power of something small that can capture the imagination. That's why I always say comms is about that big strategy, but it's also about those small little details. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you so much. I can just, I'm going to let everybody else ask questions because I'm sure there's lots, but I just wanted to just go back to all the visits that you've been doing this year. It takes so much time, and I know the King's visit was particularly, I mean, that was so complicated, and so many different partners and so many people pulling in different directions, and you held that whole thing, and it wouldn't have happened without you, Ruth. So really, thank you so much. And it was just a fantastic platform for us to show what we were doing and everyone involved. So I'm going to open it out to members. So I've got Yvonne and then Vicky. Yvonne.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank and acknowledge the team for the help that you gave in putting out some pretty difficult information about what was going on in Midhurst with the fire-damaged buildings, and it meant a great deal, and thanks to Rob as well for that. Yeah, it was, and despite, you know, the news trying to make it positive, we still get comments from certain people that aren't as positive, but it was a great help, and hopefully that will continue in the coming months. Thank you.
No, that's great. That's great feedback. Thank you. Vicky.
Yeah, so I was able to join the officers for the Dark Sky Festival and the some of the anniversary events. And also this year, I also participated in the light monitoring, the surveying of the dark skies areas. So again, just to acknowledge and really thank the officers for what goes on behind the scenes. Everyone said it, it's a huge amount of hard work to organise volunteers, to obtain that data that we need, to ensure that we fulfil the dark skies reserve status, but also the fun that goes into the public engagement of it too. I mean, you know, you're able to see the Orion Nebula, Starlink, unfortunately, but, you know, lots of wonderful things, you know, a good handful of Jovian moons in our place. And so it's so important that we treasure and honour it, but articulate it. So thank you so much for the work that you guys do.
Thank you. I've got Gary, then Emma, and then Antonia, and then Melanie.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Fiona. Thank you. I hear you, but I can't see you. The question I think I asked last year and the year before, and probably the year before that, and every time I've been asking the same question, you seem to get a lot of media coverage from South Today. And those of us who live in the east part of the park can't pick up South Today. Is there any way that you could share some of the stuff that you do with South East Today? or Meridian. I've noticed you have mentioned it, but we seem to have the majority of the emails that come to us. Oh, well, by the way, look out for something on South Today. We can't pick it up. So you've got a black spot in members' inventory, should we say, because we just can't pick that up. You must know that because you live in the East as well. It just can I make a plea that perhaps you can get a link to it, please? Because I've tried the link on a couple of occasions and it just doesn't work. But thank you, that's all. Very good report, though, by the way.
Thanks, Gary. Do you want to?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. It is a real pain that we're split across two. We're a very long, awkward national park in many ways. It is a real pain. We have had a huge amount of, probably more coverage from ITV Meridian this year. We've done really well with them. But absolutely, we do share the links. Unfortunately, on the BBC, the links expire after a certain time, so it may be because it's expired. So we try and make sure that it'll get out straight away. But yeah, I'll definitely take that home. It's usually about 6 days, and some of it can expire earlier than that, unfortunately. But yeah, we will absolutely try our best. It does go out to all of them. We have relationships with all of them. It depends what's kind of catching the spark of the journalist at the time, at that moment, or if they've got somebody else, or sometimes if you've got examples from that area, really helps as well. So, for example, the BBC are going out in the East. They've been sparked by the glowworms story that we did, is related to a reintroduction in the West, but we're actually taking out BBC from the eastern part in the next week or so to do some coverage. So hopefully we'll have a story to share with you then as well.
Yeah. I find I pick up lots of stuff on social media, I'm not going to lie, that's what I'm picking up. So Emma, then Antonia, then Melanie, and then Mark.
Thank you. Yeah, in Richard Louv's words, how can we protect what we do not love, and how without knowing every small little being we need to love more, therefore to protect. And when you get down to those nitty-gritties of those tiny little glowworms, which I'm lucky enough over in Washington to have an ample array of them shining around. And that's where, for our teenagers who are, although the laws are changing, get a lot of their information from those screens and from those comms, of putting this out constantly and then them getting caught by bigger news stories. It's just so wonderful to be able to find the small and to help that ripple out to find the love for more. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Antonia.
Is this the first time that you've been telling us about the plan for a rebrand? It's just that I wasn't aware that we were planning a reworking of our logo, and it's quite high risk, isn't it? Because there are many famous cases of, Uber and Burberry, and either they spend a lot of money and they change it and everybody hates it and they have to change it back, or they spend a lot of money and they make a small change and everybody says, why did you bother? So I just would like a little bit of background to that.
I can explain a little bit about that. So our primary brand is our shared identity, the national park. That's not changing visually. What we are asking to do is to have when I first came into place, when the national park was created, we had the South Downs National Park Authority logo, and the park logo was exactly the same. It wasn't really fit for purpose. It didn't allow us to do a lot what we did. So in 2013, we began the exercise of looking at a place brand for the national park, so that it has a brand that exists outside of us, and it's designed to be used by partners. So if communities or East Sussex County Council or business want to use it, they also can. So the visuals for that are staying the same. What we're upgrading, but what we are doing is going to look at that backstory. Is it still fit for purpose with the vision that we have for the place now? So that how we describe it, how we talk about it, it's quite passive at the moment, and we're looking to move. I think the authority is moving very much more towards a proactive, active, future-facing. What you will see new visuals for is the authority brand, which has long been a goal because it just sits on its own. It doesn't relate to the park, and it doesn't really say much about it. It's very old-fashioned. So ideally, those visuals will change. The other thing that's added into the mix is that National Parks UK have been doing some extensive work over the last 2 years, looking at that collective NPA UK brand. So the brand itself will stay the same, the little triangle, but what has changed extensively is the brand story behind it. So how they describe who we are collectively. And that's another layer we need to look at. How do we fit into that so that we're a key part of that national brand when we're telling that story, either at NPA or as a 15 together. So a lot of it will be not necessarily public facing. It will be how we provide guidance for how we talk about things when we do projects, when James and his team are out looking at devolution or income generation. So yeah, so it won't be a dramatic, our shared identity will stay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. So I've got Melanie and then Mark, and then John.
Thanks, Vanessa. Ruth, thank you so much for this. And I think the planning communications, as a non-planning committee member, have been really valuable, and well done for keeping them proactive. I think that has really shifted or is shifting people's views of our planning service. And if we can get out early on the front foot with certain messages, I think it does us credit. And I think it reflects the work of the team as well, so much better. So hopefully it's a win all round. So, big congratulations on that one. My question is around Seven Sisters. And I recall at P&R, probably back in November, the team was saying, we're going to have an upgrade of our website. And we're now quite a long way through the year. I appreciate you've been very busy, but I'm just wondering now, how does an upgrade of the website sit with a complete brand review? And does it mean that that piece of work will be pushed away even further?
Thank you, Melanie. Yeah, the planning one, it's always tricky, isn't it? Because a lot of our best planning work is stuff that you don't see. Because Rob and I or Tim or others have been working on that. So it's great to be able to do some more proactive ones, but we've got to do it carefully. Like the enforcement action, you've got to be really careful how that is going to land so that it actually enhances people's understanding of what we're doing rather than makes it seem, a big bad authority, which is always a risk. In terms of Seven Sisters, so there's loads of work going on behind the scenes. So unfortunately, both our website and the Seven Sisters website needed a technical upgrade, a PHP, it's something in the background. So that was commissioned and completed. The work is actually happening at the moment as we speak. So we're about to sign off the new look and tweak and structure of Seven Sisters, but it does take time because it needs external development. We have had a year of challenging website issues, as staff will have seen with communications going out, but that's all in hand. In terms of the work on Seven Sisters, it is very much an integral part of the comms and engagement strategy. Absolutely. It's a whole piece of work in its own right, but work is ongoing in the meantime as well in terms of developing a 12-month plan for Seven Sisters. So yeah, the website is imminent. As I said, we've had initial designs. There's been a few backwards and forwards, but that's coming through. And then the last question about the branding. This is such a complicated branding hierarchy. We are not looking to change the look of Seven Sisters, but one of the things we will be looking at in that branding piece of work is that goal to transition Seven Sisters from a visitor first to a nature first experience. So that's also going into the branding brief, which I'm just finalising at the moment, and it's hopefully going out this week. So it is a really complicated, a lot of it behind the scenes, but that's going to be a core part of how we switch that communications for them to a nature first. So it's going to take some time. Luckily, when I did the branding for Seven Sisters, I always insisted that the word country park was not there, which is now looks like a very good decision. But yeah, so we'll be looking, sort of be a tweak as well. And what you're going to start seeing is that will allow us to have that messaging coming through differently. Yeah. So all in hand, but lots of work happening behind the scenes.
Great, thank you. So I've got Mark, then John Cross, then Lara, then Teresa, and then Robson. Mark.
Thank you, Vanessa, and thank you, Ruth, and the team for the amazing work that you're doing every day. It's really, really appreciated. I'll make just a quick comment on brand, because I think people are always drawn to visual identity, and that's the last thing in a brand review. So it's really about who we are, what we stand for, how do we sound, how do we feel, what do we believe, and thinking about things like our hierarchy, the brand hierarchy, so where the different bits of what we do, whether it's Seven Sisters or future sites, where that might sit. So it's about planning for the future. I think it's a really important piece of work, and it's great that you want members involved, so just to sort of support that. I'll just whiz through a couple of points I've just pulled out on the numbers here. So just on 1.3, just brilliant that the new strategy will be outcome focused, supported by KPIs against the outcomes. So that, you know, that's music to my ears, Ruth. Thank you. 3.3, social engagement, social media engagement rates phenomenal. 7.32, it's absolutely market leading. So members should know that. It's great. Well done. And also the amount of proactive press releases. I mean, that's almost one a week, accounting for people being on holiday, if you're allowed a holiday sometimes. So great work. That just shows you the amount of work that's actually happening behind the scenes to enable those press releases to be produced in the first place. So well done. 3.8, bringing the PMP to life, using VEV. That's one of the best pieces of digital work I've seen in years. It's fabulous. And everyone that I've shown it to loves it. I know Sean's particularly fond of it as well, especially the music. Yeah, and the tweets, isn't it? The birds, that's it. And it's that sort of, additional work and taking on that kind of leading edge sort of work which will set us apart from the other parks, and they'll look to us as those doing best practice in this area. So well done. I'm nearly done. Sorry. I've covered that. 4.3, challenges. It's good that you shared that this time. I think it's really important for members to see that. Good comms teams don't feed trolls, and you don't. So, well done for shutting them down. But I think it's important members see how vile the media landscape can be from time to time. And then just lastly, 5.1, so member workshops on the strategy. I would personally welcome an inclusion in those workshops of a focus on the outcomes rather than audiences. I just think that audiences, I'm sure our members have got great ideas around audiences, but that's really your specialism, yours and the team's specialism. Where I think you might get more from members is how will we know when it's good? What will good look like in these areas? So I perhaps would just lean into that a bit more. I'm happy to speak to you separately about that. And then, just support for a member workshop on the brand in any way. Happy to help in any way on that. So thank you very much.
Brilliant. I've got John Cross and then Lara.
Thank you, Chair. I was just saddened to read in the report and to see on that presentation some of those media post responses, and I went to Chichester Pride, and if anybody's been on a Pride March recently, it's about many peoples. It's not just about gay people. It's about and certainly in Chichester there were young people, Boy Scouts, Girl Guides, all sorts of different walks of life. It's about pride in your community, pride as an individual. And all I wanted to say really was don't shy away from carry on posting that sort of information, because we need to reach those audiences and reach those young people who look at identity very differently from a different generation.
Thank you, John. That's really powerful. Lara, and then Teresa Robson, please.
Thanks very much, Ruth. Really excellent report. And I'd echo what Mark says about all the proactive press releases. It's always really easy to think of content to share because there's always so much happening. My question was about whether or not we do any work on sort of stakeholder perception work. So obviously you've got really good and really high level engagement, but I'm curious on how what we're pushing out is perceived by the people who are receiving it and what information we know about that. And then the second part to that question is about what they then do with that information and whether or not there's a kind of journey we can take them on from being sort of passive recipients of information and potentially, sharing it to them being active participants and, calls to action, how they then, move on from that information to what can I personally do to be a part of that agenda. Thanks.
Really good.
Thanks, Lara. That's really good points. It's always really difficult, isn't it, with what makes people think what they think, whether it's what you posted or something else they've seen, because we're being bombarded by so much information all the time. We don't even know ourselves why have we seen a glimpse of a poster at the side of our eye. And one of the things we're trying to improve a lot is sentiment, and being able to monitor sentiment, both of our press work and of our social. We are going to be working really closely with Pauline to look at those. So when we're looking at KPIs, there's going to be a set of KPIs that I'll bring back, but I need a more detailed set that's going to allow us to kind of look on a much more regular basis of what's landing, why it's landing. So we're looking at the engagement and what kind of engagement there is. So the example I gave of Seven Sisters there of over 2,000 people saving that post, that can tell us that they found that the way that information was communicated, very similar information that we've given before, landed with that. So we're doing more of that. So we're trialing and testing stuff, and some stuff is going to land more. So we're definitely looking at that. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the brand hierarchy work I've talked about, it's all about moving from being beautiful and passive towards active. And we need that background underpinning to allow us to be able to communicate in a way. You guys are sitting here having very forward-facing, innovative discussions, and we need to make sure that our comms is going to reflect that and feel that we are taking someone. But yeah, we're looking a lot at how we engage people, particularly about youth engagement. So we had a really fantastic meeting with a young spoken word poet called Woodsy on Friday, and we're looking at how we can work with him about doing workshops and engaging and just communicating in different ways. So we've got lots of threads out there at the moment about how we might engage people, but it's all about giving people action and hope. I would say that. You have to have hope that you can do something, and then you have to have the information and the support to be able to take that action. Not just here is what you can do, but we have to kind of go on a journey with people. So yeah.
I was going to say, Ruth, as well, because we had that branding presentation last week at the Chairs and Chief Execs Forum, and one of the things that at a UK level, the Director of Comms is going to be doing a lot of polling over the summer, isn't she? Really kind of going out and really trying to find out the truth of what people think of national parks, nature, the way she's really thinking about those questions, so she really draws out the facts, which will be really interesting, and I'm sure that will be cascaded to you and out to us. So
that's a piece of work. It's why our work at that national level in comms engagement is really, really important. So that's something we can do collectively, that on our own we just probably wouldn't have the resources where they're funding our time to do that. But yeah, we absolutely are, and we're also looking at some collective pieces of work, aren't we? Which they brought to the CEO and chairs, so we'll be able to share that when it comes out. And it's one of the things that I'd like to be able to report back on is the national comms and engagement, if members are interested in that as well. Yeah, and obviously, as I said, when we're doing our branding work, we're looking to see all the time, it's about how we connect and how we can make the most of what they're doing and actually use them to amplify what we're doing.
Yeah, sure, great. Okay, I've got Teresa, then Robson.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo thanks on what an amazing report, and just to say I always love listening to what you're doing when you come along. So it just shows how important it is to put out about our local wildlife, on how many posts that you got on the glowworm. I have some glowworms in my ward in Hollandbury Hillfort, and usually I go up there every year to look at them. I haven't been this year, but my daughter went. They're still there, but they're at the back of they're at the one side of the Hillfort. So it just shows that another thing, how important it is for dark skies, because I think the reason why they're not this side is because the light's from Hollandine. So they're all around the back. They're great. Love seeing them.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. Robson.
Thank you. I've got a couple of points. I'm going to make it really quick. Just on that kind of new messaging and tone that you've been using, particularly with some of that Seven Sisters Access stuff, just wanted to feedback. I've heard some really good stuff from people I know that use the site and that access the park more broadly, and I think people like that it's a bit more kind of, some of it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, some of it's a bit more kind of, the framing of the message just is going down really well. So just to echo that. regarding, I mean, it's been touched on, but kind of that addressing the hostile environment and kind of, you know, managing that. Just, you know, kudos to you and the team. And, like, please do keep doing that, because I've really found from some work I've been doing outside of this role on kind of access to the environment and stuff, is like people in those diverse and marginalised communities, they really just value people showing up and just actually caring and actually showing there is a place for them and they feel like they can belong. So, yeah, I know it is difficult when you're on the team and obviously there is some backlash, but yeah, I would just really kind of, you know, encourage you to continue that. And then just something that's kind of been on my mind, I mean, we've talked about in the past, is could we be doing more work? So obviously we're talking a lot about promoting responsible access at Seven Sisters, but I wonder if we could be doing more to kind of promote other sites which fit that similar, you know, one of the big draws of Seven Sisters for a lot of communities is the public access, is, you know, there's transport links, there's the buses constantly, the train nearby. And so I just wonder if there's more we can be doing to promote other sites with lower visitor pressure across the park to kind of shift some of that visitor pressure. And I'm going to say the thing everyone hates, but there could be some scope to work with influencers or content creators. I know people hate those terms, but I know some people that have those kind of, that's their job. And I do think that I've seen it particularly with some government departments recently doing that more kind of third-party creator work. I've seen like DAV have been doing some, and DEFRA as well. It does go down really well, and particularly when you bring in that storytelling element and actually someone helping you to tell your story. So just, I know there's obviously a minefield there with working with these, we'll go with creators, that seems a bit less cringe. But yeah, just something, just something from my kind of experience and work that I've noticed.
Cool. We got you as well, Robson, right? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Robson. Some really good points. I mean, the new tone, I mean, I quite like it because I get to be more sarcastic and slightly ruder, which is my natural place. So I'm not. They don't allow me on very often, but it's a bad sign when I'm telling the young digital and social media, no, you can be ruder, don't worry. Channel sarcastic middle-aged lady. It seems to be working a treat. I think in terms of the hostile environment, yeah, we're never going to back down. It's why I think it's really important, though, because I kind of frustrate some other people when I say this, but I am very much, when we talk about national parks for all, it's our job to bring those audiences with us too. It's no good getting new audiences. We have to bring those people with us, and we have to try and bring everybody together. You can't give up on an audience you don't morally agree with or morally align with. So yeah, absolutely, we will stand up to that. Nothing I like to do on a Monday morning more than stand up to fascists. But we got to try and bring people with us, actually, because sometimes people are just parroting what they see and hear. And if we put up the wall, you're just going to push them further away. So yeah, definitely trying to do a lot of that. And it's why that audience work is going to be really important. How do we look after our existing audiences and our new audiences? And you guys are, yeah, definitely going to be key to help us to do that. And in terms of Seven Sisters, yeah, absolutely. We have been exploring various influencers. It can be quite tricky because when you go down the route far enough, you find out that there's a political cause maybe that we're not allowed to talk about because we're supposed to be non-political. But yeah, absolutely, we'd love to. And Robson, if you've got any recommendations, we'd love to. We are definitely trying to steer people away. But it's very hard to get that messaging out there because nobody wants to cover that kind of stuff. So for example, the newsletter this week is all about places to go, great places to go for a picnic and explore. None of those are Seven Sisters. So we have a hotline. I have a hotline to Claire Onslow. We talk pretty much every day, weekends, evenings, about, oh my God, have you seen this? And I have to depressingly send her stories where, yet again, it's named as the best place to go from London. Which is, yeah, it's difficult when you're up against that. But yeah, we definitely are trying to do that. We're working with, for example, Muslim hikers, and they were really keen to come back to Seven Sisters, and we said, please don't. So we're going to work with them on QECP, and they're going to go to the West again, so to understand. So yeah, trying, but that's a trickier one to cut through. But again, that's where the branding and that reimagining to a nature place is going to start to help.
Yeah, it's hard when you get like global influencers like the King coming and having a photograph. Yeah. It's just like, damn. damn, we're trying to...
Yeah, we can't really say no to him because, as I said, I'm pretty sure he can just come and move into your house and steal your wife or something. I don't know. I don't know how it works. I'm Irish. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. And then we're like the second best beach in the country. And it's like, anyway. Okay, does anyone else have anything they want? Soraya and then Stephen.
Hi, yeah, just on the audience's point, something is oh, it's the fan. I was like, what is that? I would be super interested in a deep dive into some of the demographics behind the numbers to see, because it's amazing that there's so many people seeing it, but I'm just wondering like what the split of the demographics of who is actually looking at that is, and also like how many of those people are in the park and how many of them are outside and kind of what that looks like. So when you were talking about audiences, I was super interested in that as well.
Cool, thank you. And Stephen?
Yes, just a thought about push messaging to parish councils. I know it's a bit of an old-fashioned route, but there's, there are 1 or 2 old-fashioned people on the parish councils. There's a willing group there, and if you push messages out, I think one that I've got, I'm a dog owner, but I've still got an issue about dogs going in rivers. It'd be great if we could get that message out so that notice could be put up, and there's a willing group there who I think could be used a lot more. But it has to be pushed to them. I don't think sending out a newsletter, because people say, I'll look at that later and never quite get to it. I think it's just something to think about anyway.
Thank you. And Tracy?
Thanks very much for that. Thank you for that. It was very good. I just wanted to ask about schools and education. So with engagement with schools, how are we pushing the message forward and the approach with getting youngsters from grassroots involved with South Down National Park?
We have a very wonderful head of people in place called Amanda, and she leads a team who does all that. So we work very closely with them. We've got a whole schools programme. We are in connection with, I think it's 85% of schools in and around the national park. We work with the trust to do a schools grant, so schools with lower incomes, higher school meals, can actually get into the national park and explore. So we've got a fantastic officer. We've also called Emma, who does the direct work in Amanda's team with schools. We do a lot of work on careers days. In the partnership management plan, you'll have seen as well, there's a lot of focus on how we get into green futures and green careers. So there's a lot of work going on around that. And we also have Paula, who works directly with young people. So we do an awful lot of work. And the partnership management plan, one of the groups that we specifically spoke to was young people, working with an organisation called Young Wilders. So there's some really fantastic school stuff happening. And we've got a lot of curriculum stuff based on our website as well. But yeah. But we do work closely with them all the time. There are also a set of ambassador schools, primary schools that work as a hub within their areas to help support other primary schools get access into the national park. So yeah, lots of great stuff going on. And they always do really well in the media, and people like to fund them, don't they, James? Yeah.
And one of our schools that we work with is in Peacehaven. And actually, Sean, you went and spoke there, didn't you? And
they just won the green flag distinction.
That's right, yeah. Anyway, but you wanted to come in now anyway, so.
Yeah, I just wanted, what's really interesting is, you've come in to present this, and I've sat through a few of these now, and it's just amazing the engagement that you've got, I think, already. So that's already a success. Your engagement rate is through the roof with the authority. Just a huge thank you from me for the work that you and the team do. You've presented a sort of, a snapshot here, but there's a whole bunch of stuff around risk management and messaging, and all the stuff that goes behind the scenes on the lesser well-known events. I think just the briefings and getting things ready and organising who's going to pick up who where, and all of that stuff is just really amazing. But for me, there was something on a slide earlier that you put, and it said you were describing what policy, strategy, and something else was. And strategy is how will we win? And there's a why here. Why do we want to communicate like this? Why do we want to put this out there? And this ties to the national branding, but for me, what we're trying to do is project what we know is true, is that we are successful, that we're dynamic, that we are that we deliver, that we are creative and innovative, And what that does is it means that when I have conversations with people who we want to partner with, they already know what we're about before I've gone into the room. And it's a positive feeling. And actually, increasingly now, I'm not having to do that. I'm having people come to me and say, I've seen this cool stuff you're doing. We want to be part of that, including central government, which is where we want to be. We don't want to be going to them cap in hand saying, we don't have any money. Will you give us some? We want them coming to us saying, you're doing really cool stuff. How can we invest? And that, for me, is the point of all of this. One of the points of all of this. And the branding work is going to be really important in terms of cementing and formalizing what we're already doing, which is projecting that voice about who we want to be and who we are and what we achieve. And I love it when I get WhatsApp messages from people who live in Scotland saying, nice one on the glowworms, and things like this. And you think, we've got that far reach. So thank you. It's amazing what you do. And it's been a really, you had a work plan, and then you had a bunch of stuff lay on top of it this year, and you've delivered all of it fantastically. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Ruth, and all the team. Brilliant. So members, the recommendation in front of us, can I just see a show of hands to that? Yeah, brilliant. Thank you all so much. So members, 10-minute break. Should we be back at Okay, so it's 3 o'clock, and I know a few of you want to leave at 4. So we're going to move on to agenda item 14, which is the creation of an earmarked reserve to support the growth of South Downs National Park impact and funding resources. So I'm going to pass over to Sean on this one.
Great. I'm going to just... Thank you. I'm just going to try and bring it up on this very long... just trying to get past the Hampshire Minerals Planning document.
1151.
There we go, page 1151, crikey. Okay, thank you. So I'm putting forward here a proposal to create an earmark reserve. There's a reason for this. We have, after last year, we received some additional money from DEFRA last year, this year in fact, 1.7 million, which has allowed us to displace some of our, what we would normally use earned income. We're now using the DEFRA money, which means that our reserve is quite healthy. We also did better last year with our investments than we were expecting, and had some other bits of income that were more than we thought. We consolidated as well a number of different reserves that have been created over the years that were no longer active. So we have around 4.3 million, we think. I'm not sure the figure is completely finalised, Vicky, but it's close to that. We want to maintain some of that still as an extra security, given the sort of turbulence in the world. We've had the conflict in the Middle East, in the Gulf, the Straits of Hormuz and so on, and we weren't sure where inflation was going to go. But we also want to use this money very carefully. Now, we came up with an approach, which is where we want to use this money not to directly fund a project which will have a beginning and an end, and yes, a nice outcome, but necessarily won't necessarily lead to long-term sustainability. We want this to be about growth. So we set out some principles and some criteria about how we would spend the money in the reserve in order to enable us to grow our impact over time, to grow our ability to bring in more funding, to grow our ability to continue to communicate and engage with the public positively, all different sort of criteria that we set in there, which I've laid out in the paper. The reason why we need to create an earmarked reserve is that when it sits in the general reserve, and correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, here, then every time we wanted to make expenditure from it, we would have to come back to the NPA, whether that was £5 or, you know, £50,000, and we felt that wasn't particularly efficient. So what I've done is laid out the principles and criteria that we would use for the decision making, asking for an initial sum, which we feel is about right for us not to have to keep coming back every 3 months, because we know that there's a lot of enthusiasm for spending this money and lots of great ideas because we're very innovative and creative. And then if we agreed that this is set up, the normal levels of delegation will still be in place. So anything over 200,000, Richard, would still come back here at an NPA. Those projects, we would try and make sure that they've been through a sort of an assessment before we bring them back to the NPA, so then we can present everything, all the information that you need to make a decision. But anything under that, we would have a system where we would agree that at SLT, and we've attached it as an appendix, a business case to sort of outline the information that we would be asking for. And the length of that business case would be proportionate to the amount of money that people were looking to get from the fund. There are predominantly focus on growth, but we have added one extra element, which is not necessarily about how we grow our impact, but it's around how we make sure that we have some money that we can invest in anything that we might need to achieve our own net zero commitments. Because as Robson pointed out, this is something we haven't been doing particularly well on. We have got a plan, but when we've got that plan, we've got to make sure we've got some money to buy whatever it is we need to buy. If we need to buy air source heat pumps, or if it's solar panels or whatever, we need to make sure that we can do that when we so that we can hit the target. I don't propose to go through to present to you the principles and criteria because they're quite clear and it's quite a short paper. But what I'll do now is just stop there and open for questions.
Yeah, great. So does anyone? So I've got John Cross, and then Robert.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I read this, and yes, very supportive of it and what have you. My only misgiving is 3.3, so amounts under 200,000 I was just concerned from sort of an authority's perspective. We're giving authority to 3 members of staff to make decisions on, of 200k, or just under 200k, which is like 20% of this fund, quite a large percentage of our reserve. Would it be prudent, so there isn't sort of a group think mentality there, that authorisation also has to be gained from perhaps the chair or from the chair of policy and resource, just as a sort of safeguarding issue, so that this isn't a group think decision?
I think it's because there's already a delegation in place for spending up to 200,000. Richard, if you want to.
Yeah, so just to clarify, members, this is an existing delegation that's in place, set out in the authority's financial procedures. So any earmarked reserve that the authority sets aside is already subject to this delegation, so that the funds in that reserve can be spent for the purposes of that reserve with the approval of the relevant director or the chief executive in consultation with our chief finance officer. So for every other reserve we have, with the exception of the general reserve, that's the delegation that exists currently. So just to ensure that you're clear on that.
I think that's why the criteria are so important and why it's really clearly laid out that it has to meet those. And basically we're approving these criteria to spend out of this reserve. Robert.
Yeah, thanks, Vanessa. I've got a question for James, actually. When we were setting up the trust some years ago, the principles look very much like what the trust was set up to do. In fact, the words are very, very similar. I'm just quite interested about, given the fact that we are setting up a specific reserve for growth, why that money wasn't given to the trust, because what the trust is trying to do looks very similar, and it's clearly there's a governance issue. So I'm just interested why we felt doing it ourselves when we set up the trust to do what looks very similar, why we've now chosen to do it this way rather than give the money to the trust to do it.
Well, I think there are similarities, Robert, and you're right that the investment in the trust does align with the investment principles that are set out here. I guess the key difference is that the trust is focused on philanthropic income generation, and actually some of the ideas here are about either increasing our ability to raise money from green finance or potentially commercially, or about managing the growing impact that the authority is looking to have. I don't see why a proposal from the trust couldn't be considered within this against other options. I think from the authority's perspective, you'll be looking to see what's going to get you the best return of investment. So I think it's critical, to my mind, given its authority reserves, that the authority has ownership of it, and therefore I don't think you'd want to delegate that to anybody. But I think that it doesn't exclude options from coming from the trust, should there be one.
James. Sean's going to answer as well, I think. My question is really, we're duplicating what the trust's doing. And therefore, is the benefit of actually looking at internal projects when the trust is looking at very similar things? That was my question about. I can understand why we're setting up a reserve. It's just a question if the trust does something similar. So we're doing left hand and right hand to doing what looked like very similar things. And I'm just curious as to why we didn't give it all to the left hand.
I'll refer back to something I often say, which is when we're looking at income generation, we're talking about more public, more private, and more philanthropic. I think this is about the private and public aspects, actually, and that delivery. We have the trust motoring, and actually the trust now has considerable funds. and is operating on its own momentum. So I think that case where you needed to prime it back in the beginning has now gone. And so I think that's your opportunity to look at how you can do the additional things beyond that. This isn't, the initial proposals we're looking at with this are not duplicating what the trust is doing.
Yeah, I think they're very different things. This is about investing in the capability and capacity of the authority to attract more finance and more funding and deliver more. I can't see the trust investing in, the two other papers that are coming in here, one is for an ecologist, one is for the CLT loan, would come out of this fund. The reason why we've put them in is because we couldn't assume that this fund, that you would approve this. I can't see the trust doing that. I can't see the trust necessarily investing in our project development team. I think it's something quite different. This is about building the capacity of our engine, whereas the trust, I think, is about attracting philanthropic money and then investing that in project delivery. We may, in fact, even invest this into elements that would increase our ability to fundraise, so it would be more the other way around. But I think it is coincidence, a happy coincidence that we have a similar wording, but this is for a very different, I guess, investment, or a different part of the structure's investment. But it's a good question.
Gary, and then Antonia.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I am going to support this, but it's the concern is slightly below, somebody mentioned 3.3, it's 3.4, and a delegated decision, if it is slightly above it, and it's considered first by the SLT, and if they support it, then it will become to the authority. It's a bit cumbersome. So if you've got to move quickly, that's quite cumbersome. We've just literally gone through this process in our own district, and we've actually increased that. I know we've probably got more money than you have, but I do think £200,000, it seems a lot for us sitting around the table, but in the great scheme of things, it's not a lot of money. So I think either raise that or try and streamline the process, because I do think the process is a bit cumbersome, that's all.
Yeah, what would you suggest?
Well, I do think that the management team and yourself should, yourself and the vice chair and perhaps chair of the P&R committee should be involved in it if they're not already. I just think that by doing this, you could easily report it out on what we have something in our authority coming out to all members potentially. But if you've got to move quickly, you could do today. And when's the next meeting? Could be months of time.
Yeah, it's a big gap. It's a bit like the funding that Melanie and I signed off on funding coming in.
Yeah, I just feel that you've got to streamline the process. And I don't think 200,000 in the great scheme of things is enough.
Sean, you wanted to come in?
I mean, it might sound odd for me to say, to not support that and say, give us more delegation. But I think we would be operating on a quarterly basis. This money is really, really precious to me. I really want to make sure that we scrutinise how we invest it so that we get it back, or we get a growth in our ability to raise money indirectly. And it's early on in the process. When we were looking at the capital fund, we asked for delegation because we had a time limit. We had to spend that capital fund by the end of the year. This is in our reserve, so we don't. So I'd rather stick with this at the moment. First of all, we sort of have to, otherwise we'd have to ask you for a special delegation. And also, because it's new, I'm quite keen that I do involve members in the decision-making when it gets above 200,000, just to stick to the delegation as we are, so that I can get the feedback from you, so that we can then get reassurance that we're making the assessments in the right way. It comes back to, John, to your point, that we have got a means of sort of learning. Now, if we find that actually it's just all going through simply and everybody says yes, thumbs up, then we might come back and say, okay, let's see if we can simplify that. But it's important to me at this point to make sure that we have those checks. In terms of the preparation of the project document, we will be proportionate. So we won't ask people to write War and Peace for everything, but we do want them to answer certain questions, and hopefully that will be relatively light. But if we find that it's cumbersome, I totally get your point. We will streamline, but the streamlining will come for me when I've got a bit more confidence that this works and that we're getting the right kind of projects coming forward.
Yeah, you wanted to come back, Gary?
Yeah, I can live with that, but just to give you an indication, we upped this sort of figure to 500,000 in our own authority. I'm sure, as I said before, we've got more money than yourselves, but I don't think 200 is a lot, to be fair. 200 is definitely not a lot. It wouldn't buy the air conditioning for this room.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
I know.
thank you.
That's really helpful, Gary. I've got Antonia, Mark, and then Robson.
Yes, I can completely see the need for more flexibility in this area. I'm just a little bit concerned about the particular criterion number 4, workforce. I completely can see the importance of having the ability to pay bonuses if you've got staff who are a flight risk, but there would be a bit of a concern if payments from this fund were sort of regularly consolidated into the pay structure. And I'm hoping you're going to say that that's not what's envisaged, that this is going to be a matter of one-off bonus payments.
So I'm not going to say it's a matter of one-off bonus payments, but what we have is a system whereby, and within our pay policy, where we can review people's job descriptions, but also the level at which they're performing. And line managers and directors can propose a review of that to see whether we need to go up a level. All in, this is a relatively small proportion of well, it's a very small proportion of this fund, although it's significant for individuals. It would fit within the pay policy. What I want to make sure we avoid is a situation where we have, let's say we have 20 of these proposals over the year, and we have a budget in our normal budget which allows us to do 10, and then we say we can't do any more, so which would be unfair, because I want to make sure that we can reward performance or improvements in performance or progression in grade, because sometimes someone's job gets regraded without being mindful of of any budget constraints within the in-year budget. We do have to be mindful that that then is locked into our pay bill. But the whole point of this is that what we're trying to do here is grow our overall income. So we would have to be careful to see that we're able to cover that increase through our growth as we go forward. The theory is that by investing in our people, that growth will come and we'll be able to do it. We'll have to test that as we go, so it's not risk-free. But the amount of money here we're talking about compared to the overall size is in the sort of smaller end of tens of thousands. Compared to the sort of 1 million overall. So I feel it's relatively low risk in that sense and very high reward.
Did you want to come in, Vicky?
Thank you.
There is actually a provision built into the medium-term financial strategy for the recurring impact of pay awards that have been agreed as part of our pay policy. So that is covered in our medium-term financial strategy as yet. So that, if that gives you any reassurance.
Great, thank you. I've got Mark and then Robson and then Daniel.
Thank you, Vanessa. I mean, I'll keep it brief. I mean, you already know that I'm fully supportive of this, Sean, and the principles that underlie it. Having listened to members, is it worth us considering coming back in a year with an update and just thinking about how it's working? Do we want to tweak the process just to kind of settle that slight anxiety that's there?
Great. Robson and then Daniel.
Yeah, so my question is just about the size of the fund and the viability, purely because you're saying you want quarterly calls for proposals, and the two examples you've given sort of as the next couple of agenda items are quite large amounts. So if you went on that, you know, those proposals add up to nearly 450k, that's 45% of the reserve wiped out in 1 year, and the replenishment, and the intention is to maintain every 5 years replenishment of the fund. So I guess are the examples you've given particularly high examples, and actually we're expecting most proposals to come in significantly lower? Is that, have I kind of made the right assumption there, or just because otherwise it seems like it could sort of wipe out quite quickly?
So the 5-year replenishment for me is of the general reserve that we're drawing on, and I didn't make that very clear. I can see now the way I've written that. So the idea is that as we grow, we want that eventually money to come back into the general reserve. So over 5 years, that 4.3, I'd like that us to be at least still at 4.3 plus inflation in 5 years' time. So, but the 1 million is an initial amount that we're asking for. If we find that we've got fantastic projects and we spend all of that really quickly, then I'll probably be coming back to you and saying, can we have another chunk?
So, am I right then in, I may have now, okay, because I think I've based my assumption on that. So, am I right in thinking then that these aren't replenishing this fund and this is a standalone million, or are we still expecting replenishment of the fund? If that makes sense, because I was under the assumption that 5-year was for, say you took 100k for a project, that project would put 100k into that investment fund within 5 years. So you're saying that's not?
No, that's not. The assumption is that with the growth that this will generate, that the general reserve size that we have will stay around the same, because some of that growth will not come directly from a project. So where you've got an indirect investment, say you've got, we invest some money in capacity to do project development, which we then use to fundraise with the National Lottery, and we get money through that, which then brings some of that money is unrestricted, and then at the end of the year, obviously, because we've got those posts covered, then that some of that money goes back into the general reserve. So the idea is that overall, we don't just deplete the reserve and then say, thanks, that was great, and we've delivered these project outcomes, but now we have to shut everything down. We've got money coming back in that we can then put back into this. The reason why we have to create this earmark reserve is simply administrative. If we don't, then I would have to come back every time for every project to the authority.
Yeah.
So just so I'm aware, just so I check I understood you, this actual impact growth fund reserve is just a standalone million that will be spent as necessary. It's not the intention to keep topping up, or that's something we'll review sort of down the line.
If we deplete it, then I will come back and ask for more money to come in. Hopefully, more money will have come into the general reserve at that point to come back in. But it won't come back into this. Yeah, this is literally like a spending vehicle which constrains how much I can spend overall, sets the rules that we can use, and sets the delegation limit. And then that just hopefully gives you comfort that there's something there to guide us and that we've agreed on. And then if we want to go again, I would come back and say, can I have another million or another 500,000 or whatever?
That's the point, yeah. Okay. Got it. That was really useful questioning, Robson, thank you.
Yeah.
Daniel, and then I've got Vicky, and then Melanie.
Thank you. As first to say, I'm very supportive of the idea, but just picking up on Robert's point about the overlap, or at least potential overlap with the trust's activities, might it be worth including in the business case document an explicit consideration of whether what's being proposed is suitable for this earmarked fund as opposed to the trust? Obviously, in many of the examples like the ones we've got here, it's obvious that it wouldn't be the trust, but there may be other cases where actually it would be a consideration, and therefore it might be worth explicitly documenting that.
It's a good question. It's just to say that really this is one pot of an increasing number of pots of investment that we have, and some of the work that Alison's overseeing has been an increase in investment in our project development work, and part of that work is to try and best streamline both the development of the projects, the prioritisation of them, but then being really careful about what we put in each pot. This money is really precious because it doesn't have a timeline on it. It's revenue or capital, and we therefore have a great deal of autonomy about how we spend it. Other pots of cash have more restrictions. So some of the art of that work is going to be about trying to best use our various pots of funding with different criteria to achieve the best impact. And we've got a good team, some of which have newly joined us in the room, who are going to be helping us deliver that.
Can I come back? Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, for me, like one of the things I see this happening is really growing that pipeline, being able to invest in developing really good, strong projects. When you suddenly get a massive load of capital given to you from DEFRA and you're like, quick, what can I find on the shelf? Actually, there's going to be really, really good stuff. A lot of national parks have struggled because they haven't had the pre-investment to actually go out and do, I don't know, like a planning application or something like that, and scoping and do all the surveys to get a really, really good project ready. That's just one example. So, yeah.
And I think your answer, which I understand, but it kind of makes my point a wider one, maybe generally, that there ought to be a point explicitly stated in the business case why we're using this fund rather than drawing on the other funds with greater restrictions.
I'll just come back on that. Yes, we discussed that, and I thought it was in there. I thought we had put that, but basically the first question is why can't you fund this from somewhere else? Yeah, and if you can't, either because it takes too long or we can't find one that fits the criteria or whatever, then we would consider it for this, but only then. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I've got Vicky and then Melanie.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's been sort of touched around. I was going to ask you to give more examples of specific projects, and at 4.1 you talk about 2 proposals are in the agenda for the meeting, and so I'm assuming that's the loan to Petersfield Community Land Trust as one example. And I wondered also about kind of the depth of appetite that you might be aware of in terms of if this is up and running, you've got a backlog of possible, things to cherry pick from. And then I was thinking, well, in turn, does that look like anything? Are there holotypes? Does it look like any particular kind of types of proposals that really do suit us, and what's in the partnership management plan that we can point to and go, this is tangibly how we're able to get those things up and running? So I suppose just more about the types of projects, the appetite for them, and if there's any kind of cluster or groupings of them that really lend themselves to the delivery of the PMP.
When we were discussing this at SLT, we had a whole host of project ideas. So, this could be from refurbishing the Land Rovers, for example, because of the benefit that therefore derives to the organisation, or could we invest in some extra resource around Dark Night Skies on a short term to try and build a bigger funding application with partners that will then draw funding to, I've chosen that one intentionally, to bring other partners in and fund that in the longer term. So those are a couple of examples. I don't know if anyone else wants to add any.
So one of the ones that my team's looking to put forward is to invest in a new IT system that helps us manage our projects and report more efficiently, because we have lots of reports to different funders to manage over the course of the year. If we can do that easier, we can take on more projects and we can deliver more impact.
Another one we looked at was around what we're calling the Cookmere Water Project. Not dissimilar to Chinkton Brooks, for those of you familiar with the application, but it's about more saline lagoons. So we did have a spread and thought and tested, if you like, and we're bringing them forward to you in due course, how these criteria might play against those. So there are others, but our assessment at that time, it'll be for you in a minute, was that they didn't quite meet the criteria for various reasons, but they may do in the future.
Okay, good. Okay, is that okay, Vicky? Right. Yes, yeah.
I did think about how prescriptive we might be in terms of what this looks like, and maybe say we want this project, we want that project. But actually, what I'm really interested to find out is how people take this and look at it and come to us, and we allow that creativity to come into the place. But I think the thing I'm most excited about is that one of the most difficult things that you find to fund is that initial piece of work that gets a project going before you can get the funding from somewhere else. And I think there's plenty of things in play where we've got that, and where we can offer that to partners. So if we say, we know that one of the wildlife trusts wants to do something and we want to do it with them, but they haven't got the ability to prepare the project or the RSPB, then we say, okay, well, we can pre-fund this, we'll put a bid in together, and then we'll find a way of getting that money back through, or we'll find a way of covering that post, or creating 2 posts which are funded through that project cycle. And then what we can try and do is then have overlapping projects over time, which basically keep that capacity funded. That's the project development. And all we've done is funded that first little bit. And that, for me, is what growth looks like. It's about impact growth, which is why we've called it that, as well as our ability to sustain, to financially sustain that investment. So everything that comes to us, I want to be able to see, in my mind, we haven't set a time limit, but, within 2 years, how is this funding itself?
I mean, this is everything we said at the beginning of today, wasn't it? It's like, this is what we want to kind of enable and encourage you to go and be creative and go and look at everything and find how we can just deliver best on our partnership management plan. And I'm just so thrilled to see this, because this is exactly what we should be doing when we've got reserves. It's kind of like, this is what we've been banging on for years. Like, let's find a way of using this creatively. Oh my God. So I'm so thrilled that this has come. Sorry, Melanie, I've got in before you.
No, thanks for that. And thanks for that, Sean, because it was good to have confirmation that this is open to partners as well as to staff within the organisation. And I presume volunteers as well, just thinking widely about where the creativity and ideas might come from. Couple of things. Really, I like the project format and the business case. In terms of monitoring and measurement, absolutely vital, and therefore reporting. And my question is, where does that information go? Who has it? Who's learning from it? And how do we collectively assure ourselves that these things are on track? So I don't need an answer now, but it'd be really good to work that into either the responsibility of a committee or reporting back to this board or any other mechanisms for ensuring that we can monitor. And then just very quickly, under the, there's a question in the format about assets, and will assets be owned, what are their lives? There's also something about asset maintenance, which sometimes gets missed off when we get excited about some sort of capital purchase. And I just think that's worth building in if that's known about.
Mm-hmm. So thanks, Melanie. Did you want to come back on that? Fine.
I mean, the intention is to formally report back at PNR, but also for me to include, at least in this initial stage, a section in the CEO report for this to be able to report back on how we're doing, because I think in this initial stage, I want that feedback as we go, and I want people to see what we're doing. And I think on the asset maintenance, it's included in the business case. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Does anyone have anybody else? No. Okay. So members, we've got the recommendations in front of us. Can I see a show of hands in support? Great. Thank you. That's everyone. Brilliant. So we're going to move on to item 15, establishment of principal ecologists to support nature-based solutions and income generation. And that's James.
Thank you, Chair. Well, this is an example of what we've just been discussing, but principally it's here today because regardless of your decision on the prior item, this is something that we wanted to move forward on, and the aim was to take from reserves. Now that would be the South Downs Impact Growth Fund. So what we're asking for is 2-year funding for a nature-based solutions ecologist with the expectation that it becomes self-funding over a 4-year period. It aligns with the investment principles you've seen in the previous paper. It's seed funding that's going to reduce organisational risk, strengthen our delivery capacity and generate future income. As those members who are able to attend the Green Finance Day will have seen, the MBS opportunity is growing, and we've grown our initial work around nutrient neutrality to encompass biodiversity net gain, voluntary biodiversity credits, and soon to be announced a new carbon offer. And that obviously is going to increase as we see national significant infrastructure projects subject to B&G come November. We also have our responsible body status, meaning we can issue conservation covenants, and we've also now got the general power competence, which means that we can habitat bank beyond our boundaries, and our freedom to operate in this space is much larger. And in direct relation to that, our current capacity is starting to be constrained. Existing planning and natural capital colleagues, I think, happily at the moment, dealing with an increasing workload, but that just isn't sustainable into the future. And so this role manages some of that existing burden on capacity, but also opens up some of our ability to deliver new MBS markets, for example, B&G, as I've described, for infrastructure projects and other things. So I won't say more than that, but I'll be really happy to take any questions.
Yeah. So questions. So Stephen.
Yeah, just a question on the forecast expenditure. Those are fully allocated costs, are they? So pension, national insurance, the whole lot.
Yes, if you wanted more than that, Stephen, we have a full cost recovery spreadsheet that we use to calculate this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Good question. Does anyone else have a question for this? Robson?
Yeah, I mean, really great idea and definitely support it. I guess my question is, you talk about how they're kind of taking on this workload and generating these, you know, leads in terms of ecological support and green finance. Obviously, if this person does really well, then we're expecting them to obviously reach a capacity. And obviously the kind of income kind of peters out after sort of year 3. Are we expecting that this is going to require kind of additional staffing in terms of assistant ecologists and kind of other people, or are we kind of, and is that accounted for, or are we just sort of saying we expect the overall, even if they do really well and kind of hit all these different markets, that actually this one person's going to be enough? Because I suspect if, you know, given the growth in these kind of projects, actually there'll be a ceiling that might be hit relatively quickly.
You might want to add something, Sean, after this, but the clearest example I can give you, Robson, is if you think about these national significant infrastructure projects, at the moment we're currently undertaking tenders. So, for example, Southern Water have a procurement framework which we're currently submitting for, and that will then lead to offers of opportunities that we can bid for. We need the expertise to be able to do that. That will help us be successful in securing those opportunities. What we will need to ensure we do is that we then budget for additional capacity to deliver them. So this is why this is enabling. This helps us land the opportunities that will then have additional capacity costed in. I mean, it just generally broadens our MBS work more broadly too, and if that helps me to go over budget on the, exceed budget on the core recovery items that I've told Vicky I'm going to provide her with this year, then that is money that goes back into the general reserve, and it could be that I come back and ask either within this fund or through a future one in due course. So I think there's multiple ways it can happen through contracts that we secure with the help of this post, but potentially through a healthier future impact fund because we've helped deliver a surplus and that's gone back into the reserve.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. The nature-based solution model that we've got, the natural capital team have, is essentially the money that we make from the deals goes into an account. The interest from that pays for the team. So we could wait till we have sufficient interest to hire this person, but what this fund allows us to do is to accelerate that. So we get them in now, then we can accelerate that growth. And so if we do get to a point where they are full capacity, this is a problem we'd like to have because, you know, we would then just continue to grow this model and it's essentially, it should fund itself. And maybe next time, if we do need to employ somebody else, we wouldn't need to draw on this fund because we'd have sufficient in the account. That would be a good outcome.
Yeah, more jobs for ecologists. Does anyone else have anything they would like to ask Lara?
Just a quick question. Is this then a fixed term post or is it a permanent post?
It would be employed fixed term with our intention to deliver the budget that we provide in the paper.
Great, thanks Lara. Does anyone else have any questions they'd like to ask? No, okay, we're going to go to the recommendation, and since we approved agenda item 14, this recommendation has changed. So instead of, it said originally before that this money was going to be coming out of the general reserves, and so it's changed to South Downs Impact Growth Fund now. Can I have a proposer and a seconder for this change? Thank you, Stephen and Jerry. And then can I see a show of hands for this new recommendation? Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. Great. Okay. Item 16 is the loan to Petersfield Community Land Trust to enable development at Reservoir Lane, Petersfield. So I know a couple of people are going to leave the meeting. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So we'll just let everybody go. Thanks, Gary. And then I'm going to ask Rob Green to introduce this report. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Chair. So, as we said before, this is the second example before you today, but it is one that would come to NPA because it's over the delegation limits at 300,000. We heard the speaker earlier, but just to summarise briefly in terms of what the development is, it's Reservoir Lane in Petersfield. It's a site that was allocated by the community as part of the Petersfield Neighbourhood Plan. And it is being developed by the Petersfield Community Land Trust, and it will provide 10 self-build and affordable dwellings. The system would work that the CLT, the Community Land Trust, would build the utilities on the site and all the major infrastructure, and then sell the individual plots to individuals to build custom-build homes. But there are limits in terms of what they can do, as Martin said earlier, in terms of making sure that we've got that good variety across the site. What I would say is that, yes, this is Petersfield Community Land Trust, but we do work with all of our community land trusts across the park. We have affordable housing strategy groups that work with them to understand where they are, what developments they have in the pipeline. Petersfield came to us for assistance in this case with the development that they're ready to get going with, but it doesn't shut the door to any other CLTs as part of this ongoing fund, so we're completely open to discussions with other CLTs as well. So we've got the financial information in the Part 2 appendix, and obviously happy to answer any questions on that in the closed session. What we are coming to you today is to request the principle of making that £300,000 loan to the Community Land Trust. There is extra work that we need to do. There are further Treasury and financial and legal checks that we need to do. We also need to do some Subsidy Act work as well. But what that's gearing up to, subject to members' approval, is a loan agreement between ourselves and the Community Land Trust to set out the terms of that loan and its repayment as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, please, yeah.
Just to re-emphasise the point, this is a sort of test case. For me, this is really exciting because it has the potential to unlock, and it is part of our new approach to affordable housing, to unlock affordable housing if it works. And Robson, this is a pretty straightforward, the money goes out and it comes back with 6.5%, and it gives us a chance to do it again and do it again. So if we can start to see that we can start to bring a pipeline through, for me this feels like a really exciting and interesting way. The growth is not huge. We could probably invest in other ways and get 7.5 or 8, but with it we get financial growth and outcomes in terms of affordable housing. So it feels like a really good approach.
Yeah. And we just had a online parish meeting last week, all about affordable housing, and we had speakers come and speak to all the parishes that were there, and that will go out to all the parishes as well to advertise what we're doing, and the Affordable Homes Steering Group and everything that we are trying to do in this place, because obviously this is number 7 of our Partnership Management Plan, Thriving Communities. This is really, really important. So, questions. I've got John and then Stephen and then Robert.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say that I think this is exactly what we should be doing with our funds to pump prime schemes like this. It's quite important. It's a lovely scheme. It's not a very big scheme, but I think it'll give us a return. So well done in putting it together. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, John. Stephen.
Yeah, the speaker earlier said that the houses would have a 10% reduction because they're only open to local people, and then a 15% reduction for the affordable. In the report, it says a 30% reduction for the affordable. Have I got my maths wrong?
No, thank you. I did catch that as well. So the legal agreement associated with the planning application secures that local connection test, which means that these sites will be offered to local people. What the speaker mentioned is the advice they've been given is that usually that results in a 10% reduction. That's not secured by the planning. I think they were just bringing some market information there. What the planning approval and the legal agreement does do is secures the units at 30% market discount. So yeah, I did pick up on that maths as well, but it does secure it at 30% discount.
It's all right, but a second question. Don't we have a fund set aside for affordable housing where we've got, I think we've got it from SIL or Section 106. Couldn't we put that in to this development?
We do. We collect financial contributions under Section 106 agreements. It wouldn't be sufficient to cover this and continue to support other schemes as well, which is why we brought it under the new fund.
And would you be able to, you wouldn't be able to use that money in a kind of loan way either, would you? Or would you?
No, it's the certain pots of money are really restricted by the development that they're linked to. So
I think this is what's exciting about this, is this idea of kind of like an ongoing mechanism, which everyone knows around this table how hard it is to deliver affordable housing at the moment in this country, and especially in the national park. And we're just amazed these guys are going out and trying to find innovative ways to unlock this. And so let's pray that this works, because this could be really cool. So I've got Robert, and then Stephen, and then Teresa.
Thanks, Nessa. It's a fantastic idea. Totally support it. I've got a question, though, Robert, about page 1172, the risks. The middle one of those 5 risks, which is clearly the biggest one, which is the repayment isn't made or the land trust fails. Clearly, the history of the land trust is we've been looking at that site for, I don't know, it was allocated 7 or 8 years ago. It's been a long time sorting itself out. The idea that it's guaranteed to happen in the next 2 years, I think, is ambitious. So my question is the middle one of those mitigations, that the charge on land to recover costs from future landowner or developers, does that mean we get the land if they don't repay the £300,000, or does that mean we just have a charge on it? So you're just going to sit there until the land is fundamentally sold in X years' time. So I'm just trying to understand the risk. Do we get the land, or do we put a charge on the land until it's finally developed or sorted out?
Thank you. So it is subject to those further legal checks, but our understanding at the moment is that it is a charge on the land. So whoever develops the land or purchases the land in the future, that will sit there for ourselves and the major lender as well.
Thank you for that. Therefore, the follow-up question is, if we're in that situation and they've defaulted, they've got £300,000, what do we then do? Do we write it off? Because we don't know how long it's going to take to come back. What do we do with it in those circumstances? You've identified the risk, we've got a charge. What's the accounting then of that £300,000? Because we've got a charge, we haven't got the money back. I'm interested in how we account for that number in the case of it defaulting.
Craig.
That's going to be a test of my understanding now and trying to get that through. But we would account for it as a loan due back to the park. And that would be carried on the balance sheet of the park until it was repaid. And we would recognise that at the interest rate that was due as well, so we would recognise it at the loan value. And then, so if that took 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, and we were confident that we were going to get that money back, it would just be held on the balance sheet until that point. If there was a default on the payment or anything, we'd then have to consider how we'd write that back through revenue, but that would be a discussion that would need to happen at NPA and a recommendation made there.
Okay. Does anyone else want to come in on that? I've got thank you. I've got Stephen, then Teresa, then Robson, and then Paul Bevan. Steve, yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a question on the repayment period. The land hasn't been purchased yet, as I understand it. They've got a discount that's available till November, which implies they haven't bought it yet. And the loan is due to start repayment in February 2028. That seems an incredibly ambitious time frame to purchase land, build out and sell properties. Is that a realistic? I'm fully supportive of this project, and I agree with everything that's been said so far. But should we not be thinking about a longer grace period, if you like, for repayment to make this work? Otherwise, I can see it coming back to committee asking for an extension. 18 months from purchase time doesn't seem very long.
Yeah.
The 2 years would start from the date that we sign the loan agreement, and obviously we're asking for authority to do that work. So we'll be looking at toward the end of 2028. That figure in the paper in terms of February 28 was just what was indicated to me in terms of their trajectory of sales and when the trust think that they will be able to repay the loan. But the 2 years will actually give them a longer time to repay it. In terms of whether we extend that further, obviously that's open to discussion. We've put 2 years there, but if members want to discuss that and suggest an alternative, then we can think about it.
Craig, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I think really that's why we've put in the recommendation about the due diligence. and the Treasury checks, just to make sure that the risk that the park's exposed to is minimised, and that process would enable us to undertake an assessment of the risk, the financial risks, and set an appropriate loan term that reflects the arrangement and actually the substance of it. So it'd be through that process we'll look at that.
Do you want to? I've got Steve. Do you want to come back at all, or?
No, not really. I just think even with the date of signing, if that were next month, it's still a very short time period to build 10 houses and have them sold. And I just don't want to be setting people up to fail and increase administrative burden unnecessarily.
I guess, do they have to sell 10 houses before they can start paying us back? I don't know. Alison, you wanted to come in?
So they're selling the plots, and the plot owners are doing self-build. So they're actually, the income stream starts, they put in the services, then they sell the plots. So they're not having to wait for the builds to complete before the cash arrives. So that does shorten the timescale.
Yeah, that does change it. Cool. Okay, I've got Teresa Robson and then Paul Bevan.
Yeah, I do love this project, local affordable houses for local people. But one of the things I was just thinking about was, so they're buying the plots at 30% if they're affordable. So when they've built their house and they own it and they've had the discount, and then they decide to sell it for profit to somebody else from maybe London at a high gain. But will the whole overall land be owned by the Community Land Trust to be able to stop that happening?
Yes, so the land remains in the ownership of the Land Trust, their service plots. The planning legal agreement secures exactly that. It secures that 30% market value from the unit or the land, and the land, so it covers both scenarios. Also worth mentioning that in the cost estimates, that the semi-detached units are may be delivered by the CLT themselves, again, because they are the affordable units as well. So yes, it is secured by the planning legal agreement that it's the unit or the land.
Okay. Robson.
Yeah, I mean, really supportive as well for more affordable housing. I guess just as someone that's not as familiar with community land trusts, I guess my question would be, where do they traditionally get this funding? And then, as the follow-up to that, why are we then providing it instead? And then, as part of that bigger question, how does our 6.5% compare to that traditional fund? And just trying to understand why we're offering them a loan at 6.5%, when surely, if this isn't something routinely done, these trusts normally get the funds from elsewhere.
Thank you. Rob?
So ordinarily, not discussing this land trust, but in general, they're set up as community groups, and they go to the usual banks that you would expect. There are certain banks that support this with the lower interest rates. What we have in this instance, as you can see in the public report, is that they do have a major lender. That major lender is asked to plug the gap, as it were, which is why the Community Land Trust have come to us in this case. Obviously, they're doing their due diligence, and they've been out to the market, and it's this last element that they've asked for our assistance on.
Does that answer your question, Robson?
Yeah, I guess it does. I mean, it's more just, to me, it's just interesting that if we're not traditionally the funding, do you see what I mean? It's why are they at the point where they're asking us that interests me. I'm really for the scheme. I think it's really great to be providing affordable housing. I just question whether it's...
I think this is part and parcel of just like
Yeah.
one of the reasons why there's just not these things happening when we keep trying to encourage this to happen. And this is the problem, is that the planning team and the officers have gone out to try and find where are the gaps? Why aren't these things coming forward? Why aren't we delivering on these schemes? And actually found that this is one area that we could actually make an impact and actually kind of get some stuff happening on the ground. And there's a bit of a risk here, but I think it really speaks to us looking at innovative ways to try and deliver some of this stuff. And, the lack of affordable housing is just...
No, I 100% agree. I just would then say, based on that, are we planning, when this money comes back in, are we planning to put it straight back into general reserves, or are we considering whether we should keep it separate to decide whether we want to operate it as a kind of affordable housing? You know, I mean, keep the money separate and just have it as this revolving scheme, and just that 6.5%, I would just like to know if that's based on just making sure there's as little barriers to the land trust in delivering this scheme, or is that what would be seen as a competitive rate for this type of loan? That's just my final question, but that would just be nice to know.
Yep. Did you want to come in, Sean?
I'll let Rob come back on the rate, but I think I want to see how this goes before we decide whether we feed it back in. If it works, then I think either we'll use the mechanism that we set up here today, or we'll say, okay, maybe we need to tweak it, it needs to be separate, and then we'll have something that's specific. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Great. I've got Paul Bevan and then Vicky. Oh, sorry, you wanted to do the rates. Yeah, sorry, Rob.
So thank you. In terms of the 6.5%, we chose it because it was reasonable. It gives us the benefits of the interest, but without being a blocker in enabling this development, which is what this was about. What I would mention as well is that we talked about it coming back to us and then starting that rolling fund for other affordable schemes. But from a community land trust site, this is exactly what it starts as well, because a community land trust takes what they've made with all the profit from a development and then rolls on to the next one. This is the first development for the community land trust, the first big development. So it allows us to help with that rolling fund and give them a kickstart to invest into other schemes in the future as well.
Yeah, great, thank you. Paul?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if there was any priority in loan repayment between the major lender and ourselves.
Yes, thank you. I think that would be something that we'd have to specify in the loan agreement as well, in terms of the conditions of its repayment. So I don't know that at the moment, but we'll cover that. Yeah, we'd have to discuss that in terms of that other lender as well, and understand their conditions and what priority that they're asking for. So we'd have to understand that.
It'd be quite good to understand if we're going to have to wait to the last bits. Yeah. Vicky?
Yeah, thank you. I just wondered, is this novel for a national park? Is there a precedent anywhere, or is this new and exciting for the family, so to speak?
Yeah, good question.
Well, I was just going to quickly highlight the example of the New Forest, where they actually built 2 affordable homes. So I think it's not uncommon for national parks to invest in an affordable home provision. And actually, Robson, your question earlier, community land trusts often get funding from local authorities. We are in essence a local authority, so we are one of the key sources to get these things pump primed.
Okay, I've got John and then Daniel.
So how I'm reading this is that this is not a great investment. If we stuck this money in the bank in our normal investments, we'd probably get a better return. So the principle of it is that we get affordable homes, which is great, but the risk is ours, and we're not getting a great financial return on this, which makes me slightly uneasy. I support it, but it's not the greatest of investment, but the ideology of it is correct. Am I right with that?
I'm going to bring in Craig here, but it's not really about investing, is it? Because it's about delivering on our partnership management plan. And Craig, you want to come in about?
Yeah, so the interest rate is actually more favourable than what we've been receiving on general reserves. If we, in a couple of agenda items' time, we've got the TBM report, or the outturn report, sorry, for 25-26, where it shows the average investment received on the reserves was 4.68%. So 6.5% represents a greater return on that than what we're actually seeing generally at the moment. I would just say as well, on the 6.5%, Subsidy Control Act will determine the final rate that goes into the loan. Subsidy Control Act's in place so that we, as an authority, as a local authority, you're not lending money in a favourable circumstance. So it may be that that's slightly higher, slightly lower, but it is all determined by the subsidy control regulations that that are in place. So the interest rate may change pending the review of those.
Okay. Did you want to come in?
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is a sort of crazy example, but if we really wanted a return on investment, because we now have a general power of competence, you know, we potentially look at weapon systems. But you know, the point here is we unlock something, and if it works at no cost to us, with a slight increase, and we get the chance to do it again, and I think, you know, that's what we're about. We will obviously try and grow on investments, but for me, the growth is more about our ability to attract investment, you know, from others in terms of what we're doing, as well as just pure investment that, you know, gives a return. But for me, if this works, it feels like a bit of a no-brainer, and it's the right thing for us to be doing. But your point is taken. We will also have a keen eye on where, you know, across our portfolio we can maximise that return as well.
Great, thank you. Daniel.
Thank you. First of all, are we in closed session or not?
No.
We're not. I mean, what's the mechanism for that? Because one of the questions I want to ask may possibly need to be.
Oh, right, okay, yes, because we... Yeah, is there any other questions that people want to ask, or do you want to ask stuff that's in the pink papers? It sounds like you want to go to the closed session, so if we do, I just...
So I'll turn off the webcast, and we've got a member of the public here, so we'll have to ask them to leave.
Oh, yes, is that right? Oh, yes, is that... Do you mind, because we're going to go into closed session and then ask you to come back in. Thank you so much for coming. Are we? Oh, yeah. Oh. You might have to come in and out, I think. Is it back on? Yeah. Yep, we're back on. Rob, could you just re-say what you said about Section 106 and the fact that we've delivered some affordable homes with that?
Yeah, sure. So it's further information on what I said earlier in terms of our work with other community land trusts. Bearing in mind this paper is about the Petersfield Trust. We do support community land trusts across the park. So we've worked closely with Midhurst CLT, for example, using funds from our Section 106 funds that we have to support some developments in Aysbourne. That's used for a number of reasons, for subsidies, to help with energy efficiency, just to help them get those developments off the ground. We also have CLTs on our affordable housing strategy group, just so we understand what they've got coming and how we can support them with any funds and any grants that we can give them. So it is park-wide for CLTs.
Yeah. So members, and those who are new, basically a couple of years ago when we started our local plan process, one of the things that we charged Claire Tester and the team to go and find out is why aren't homes being delivered? So at the moment we've got 2,000 homes approved across the national park, 500 of those, 25% are affordable homes, and they're just not getting built out. Why is this? Why are we not getting the homes? We need them. We know the demand is there. And so part of this, and through the management plan as well, is this kind of explicit ask from members to go and find out how we can get this stuff built. And this is what's in front of you. So there is a risk. Are we prepared to back this risk? And let's see if we can get some homes built. So I want to see a show of hands for this recommendation. And any abstentions? And anyone against? Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. So we can ask Tim, Gary, I think, left. And I think Mark's left. Back into the room, and Robert's left. Okay, so we're going to go on to item 17, so the route to procurement of financial services contract, and Craig is going to leave the room. So we just let, it's all comings and goings. He's not going in the sun. We don't have to worry. Okay, so who is going to introduce this? Hayley? Yep. So Hayley Madritt here is our procurement manager to introduce. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Financial services underpin all areas of the authority's work, from budget management and financial accounting through to payroll, treasury management and support for our increasingly complex funding arrangements. So the current financial services contract is with Brighton Hove City Council. It's due to conclude at the end of March 2027. So we now need to go out to tender for the next contract. Members will note that previous procurement exercises have attracted limited competition, and recent market engagement suggests that the supplier market remains relatively small for a contract like this. The report therefore recommends an open, single-stage procurement process, which is considered the most proportionate and practical approach given the nature of the market and the authority's requirements. So I hope the report was clear, but hopefully I can answer any procurement questions and may look to Vicky for the more technical finance ones.
What do you think? Yes, you should. Yeah, no, good, well done. Okay, so members, do you have any questions on this? I mean, I just wanted to double check because we're splitting this into two parts, aren't we? Because when you've did this in the past, when it was all lumped together as a Section 151 officer and the rest of it, it just meant that you didn't really get much kind of many people coming forward. Is that right?
Yeah. There's two things here. One is to increase competition, which drives value for money. And the other is on balance, it would be better for us to have a Section 151 officer in-house. So we want to address that separately, and that feels like a better set of governance than we've had. So achieving both of those things at the same time is what we're proposing here.
Okay. Members, question. Melanie.
Sorry, so just that I'm clear, Hayley. So will there be one tender for the financial officer and one tender for the financial service? Sorry.
There'll just be a tender for the financial services contract at this point. So we're just going out for a financial services system and contract.
Stephen.
So there'll be an increase in headcount for the financial officer, whatever they're called. Is that right?
Not necessarily. So at the moment, the Section 151 officer is covered by Brighton and Hove, and we have Vicky, who's the finance lead here, who has, I don't know what the role is versus Section 151, but and in a sense, the role that Vicky's playing would be very similar to Section 151. We may have an increase in the headcount because we might need essentially a Section 151 officer and a deputy finance lead who can support on some of the day-to-day. But overall, the headcount should be very similar to what we've got at the moment. It's just where they sit, whether it's in the organisation or outside of the organisation. But the in-house stuff we want to deal with separately. It's not so much, just to answer the previous question, about two procurements, because one is more a procurement and the other one will be more an issue will be around recruitment.
And is it because there's the 151 officer is a statutory post, is it? So it has a different...
So that if we included the Section 151 officer, and Richard will have to fill the details here, but we would also then have to include the AMS committee in that appointment because it's appointed in the same way that I am and the monitoring officer is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Antonia, did you want... Yeah.
Yeah, are you confident that someone will come forward for the Section 151 officer role? Because we do need to have one. It's a statutory requirement. And I thought I was hearing you saying there's not much competition for it.
It's
more for the whole package, wasn't it?
It's not so much that there's not much competition for it, but for a provider to provide the financial services and a Section 151 in the private sector, the Section 151 is something they don't necessarily specialise in. But in terms of providing financial services, they can, we have plenty of those. So it's the package together means that you tend to exclude people. But individuals, there are plenty, I think, who would be interested. But we will deal with that issue separately, and I'm not worried about our ability to do that.
Okay. Does anyone... Lara and then Stephen.
So it says that the anticipated value of the contract is around 30% higher than the current contract. Is that including or excluding the Chief Financial Officer role? And second, is that just typical in the market that it's gone up so much?
Mm-hmm.
I'll start, but I might hand this one to you, Vicky. I think the specification, we're asking for more. The nature of our funding and various things, we're growing and we need more from this contract itself. So I think that puts an increase in it. I think it allows for Section 1512 being taken out, that is. So I think that's mainly the reason for the increase in it. We've also allowed an RPI increase each year, haven't we? So that would be included in that too.
Did you want to come in, Vicky?
Yeah, the dimensions of the organisation have changed quite considerably since this contract was first let, which was, what was it, 5 years ago? In terms of the number of transactions, the green finance, the DEFRA capital, and the volume of transactions going through the books is quite significant. And we certainly found that Brighton and Hove are investing more resources than our baseline in delivering what we require from them. So I think it's a reasonable figure to put as a ceiling. To be fair, we've added another 50k in over our base 300k for the contract in this current financial year, with a view to being able to address this increased capacity. So we think it's probably quite reasonable to assume that they'll come in around the 400k mark, and if it's less, that's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. Thank you, Lara. Stephen.
Hayley, how confident are you that we'll get more than one vendor bidding for the contract?
We did some pre-market engagement, so we sent out a questionnaire to various people in the market, and yeah, there was an appetite that there'd be more than one. I'm not saying that we're expecting a lot of competition, hence why I'm suggesting maybe a single process for this procurement rather than multiple stages. But yeah, we certainly have indication that we could get more than one.
More than one expected. Melanie.
Sorry to come back again. I've just thought about something else. Is our Section 151 officer tied in with the Brighton contract, and therefore does that end at the end of March? If that is the case, if we don't start advertising until October for a financial officer, are we going to be in trouble? Is there going to be a gap if someone's got to give notice, etc., etc.?
Yeah, I mean, we'll make sure we've got enough time to get that in place, but we'll come back with a separate proposal on how we want to address the Section 151 at a later date. But yeah, I think we'll be okay. But yes, we'll have to make that transition work.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone have another question they'd like to ask? No? Okay, Yvonne. Oh, Yvonne, sorry, Yvonne.
I'm sorry I was late, sorry. Will members be involved in the tender process?
It's a great question. So we are actually looking for another evaluation panel member. So if any members would like to put themselves forward, then please do come talk to me. The timeline suggests that we were putting this tender out this month. So there is still time to take a look at all the documents we've got together so far. But yes, we've currently got an evaluation panel of 2, and I would really like 3. So if there are any members that would like to put themselves forward, it would be great to hear from you.
So get in touch with you, Hayley? Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, members, if no one's got any other questions, should we go to the recommendations? Can I see a show of hands in approval of that? And any abstentions? And any objections? No, okay. Great, thank you. Get Craig back in. Okay, so item 18, budget monitoring report, provisional outturn 2025 to 2026. Craig, to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Chair. Okay, so today I'm presenting the outturn report for the financial year 2025-26. The report shows a favourable revenue outturn position of £78,000 below budget, falling close to the position that was reported at month 9. This underspend will be transferred to the Park's general reserves position as part of the year-end process. And just to note as well that the final position also includes the approval of £155,000 worth of carry forwards. Should they not be approved today, which is one of the recommendations, it will further improve the position and that will be added to the general reserves as well. I'd just like to actually point out, aside from the report, I just highlight the financial management and engagement across the year has significantly improved from previous years, and it's reflected in the final position this year. There's been a lot more engagement, and we haven't seen the significant movement from month 9 to outturn that we've had in previous years, which is great. So, yeah, so it was well documented through the year that we needed to improve on that. So yeah, just going back to the report, including the report, the capital variations, they're £392,000 across various reports. These are effectively where projects are going to complete over multiple years and will be a reprofiling of the budget and will form part of the opening position for 26-27. I mentioned in a response to an earlier report the interest on investment overperformed for the park against the original assumptions made at budget setting, reasons for which are outlined in the report and Appendix 5. It has contributed to the final favourable outturn position. So yeah, interest rates achieved 0.61% higher than we originally assumed at 4.68%, which again was very good. So the key recommendations for members today are to note the provisional outturn position, approve the proposed carry forward requests, approve the capital programme variations, and approve the treatment of the year-end favourable position.
Great. Thank you, Craig. I'm going to go to Daniel first. Yeah, Daniel.
Thank you. Just out of interest, why do we report a 78,000 positive outturn when actually it's really 580, because 502 is we haven't had to draw on the reserves in the way we were expecting to. So really in terms of our underspend, it's £500,000. Why are we being sort of soft pedaling that, which is quite a significant number? Although maybe it's maybe too big, I don't know.
It was part of the budget setting for 2025-26 was that we would draw down on those reserves to support the final position, and we haven't had to do that. So the reserves have maintained the status that they were at the beginning of the year as a result. So the final net position, when we consider all of the reserve contributions that were proposed and approved at NPA in March last year, is the £78,000 variance on that.
Does that answer your question, Daniel?
The reality, though, is that if you put that aside, we have spent 500,000 less than we expected to spend. No?
Yes, on the revenue position, but against the approvals and what was approved at March NPA, it's a 78,000, which is what we need to be consistent and report back to.
Okay. Does anyone have anything though? Anyone to ask? No, I just want. I'm just looking at the Appendix 3, I think it is, with the capital spend, how brilliant it was that everybody was getting that out and how close, like you just mentioned, actually the movement wasn't that great. And usually at this time of the year, you suddenly just have loads that have been on there. So that really well done to everybody in the team for that. That's working hard, right? So well done. Anybody else have anything they would like to say? No? Well, just really, really well done to everybody. Thank you, Craig. And the recommendations are in front of us, if we could see a show of hands in support of that. Oh, Emma, you need to vote. I keep thinking you're not voting, and I'm like, what's wrong with Emma? Great, that's everybody. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we're on. Come on. We're on to 19. Stay with me. So, revisions to the authority standing orders. Richard, this is you.
It is, thank you, Chair. Very briefly, this report proposes a number of changes to our standing orders flowing from the annual review of governance, which is considered separately through the annual governance statement by Policy and Resources Committee. I don't propose to go through all the changes. They're summarised at paragraph 2.1 of the report in the table there, and all the changes are tracked within the document itself, which is included at Appendix 1. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah. Has anyone got any questions? I have. So, Richard, come on. I'm on the second wave. Come with me. So, delegation of functions to the Chief Exec, something I brought up with you the other day, 3.12, to provide an authority response to government and other consultations unless the response is of strategic significance. I just want a definition of strategic.
Oh, so
what is this? I know, but
well,
I want to know.
Essentially, so it's essentially the difference between
yeah,
the
this I just want
strategic
examples
view versus operational. Yeah, so you'll be aware, I'm sure, members, that there's a huge variety of consultations that come out during the year from government and also from other bodies as well. So the strategic consultations are those ones that essentially ask the big questions that we would expect and that you would expect to be involved in. So previous ones that you have been involved in, that you would expect to come for you, protected landscapes review, devolution, access to the countryside for things like byways open to all traffic, local government governance, so remote meetings, for example, changes to the member standards regime, big changes to us as an authority or to things that impact the national park. But alongside those, there are a whole load of operationally focused consultations that come out. So changes to procurement regulations, employment and workplace changes to regulations and how they operate, how green finance actually works in practice rather than the big question about it. And consultations from other public bodies like Natural England, Environment Agency, Forestry England, they come out all the time for various plans or strategies that they may be consulting on for things they're going to do. Or regulations that they're going to apply. Just a couple of examples, deer management and their strategies around that. Or one really exciting one was applying the Environment Act 2021 civil sanctions, another consultation which is an operational consultation, but they all contribute to the bigger picture. So strategic ones for members, absolutely. Operational ones for officers to respond to. And this is consistent with our approach in planning, where there is already this delegation in place for strategic planning consultations to be considered by members, but operational, non-strategic ones to be responded to by officers. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, no, it really is, because we're not getting all that stuff anyway, but you're just making that clearer in these standing orders. And Richard brings back the standing orders to this meeting every year just to tweak things, and there's always things that we've got to check and tweak, and we've already got something on the list for next year, haven't we? So there. Anybody got anything that they want to bring up? No? Okay, if everyone's happy, should we go to the recommendation? See a show of hands for that. Great, thank you so much, everybody. So now we have got the what?
Oh, no, sorry. No,
yeah, I'm going to do... So, agenda items 20, 21 and 22 are taken as read. I sort of asked about these earlier, so I hope everyone's still happy with that. Now we're going to go into part 2. So we've got part 2, some items all in part 2 that we've lumped together at the end here. So we're going to close the